Welcome everybody back into a very late night edition of Nerd Session. Oh, it just breaks my heart. I do not have an excited Logan Camden with me today. Both Logan and I experienced a little bit of heartbreak out there today. I experienced some yesterday too in college football. The Cal Bears blew a 25-point lead to Miami. Then both my Bills and your Steelers lose today in pretty heartbreaking fashion. Crazy long day of football. Sorry that we're starting so late, but it's not our fault. It's the fault of the weather in Pittsburgh, of course, with that game being delayed. We had a 9 a.m. Eastern kickoff, I should say, and we had a 10 p.m. Eastern kickoff. And we'll start with the final game, Logan. Your Steelers just at the last second fall short to your disliked, we'll say, Dallas Cowboys. What do you have to take away from this game?
I mean, I don't know if I have any new takes from this. I mean, I feel like it is classic Steelers Cowboys, the quintessential Steelers game, the quintessential Cowboys game. I mean, it is Carson, if you asked like AI to predict how this game was going to go, it played out like the exact same way. And I'm so angry, dude, because there's nobody I enjoy losing to less than the Cowboys. And every time they beat us, it's like this, man. Last time we lost Ezekiel Elliott right at the buzzer. I don't know if that's the last game, but that one hurt my heart too when Ben gets the Ben fake spike game. They get him in the end zone, and then Zeke just marches right down there, rips your heart out. This one, I mean, I can't ask for anything else from the defense. The defense played their ass off. They marched on us, but when we needed to shut them down, we did. We forced 2 Dak interceptions, both of them pretty bad. PZ Jr. makes a big-time play. The other pick is just inexcusable. Like, Dak just throws that one up. That was a gift. The defense played great, man. It's the same thing that is why the Steelers cannot be real contenders. It's the fact that they cannot reliably move the football, man. And this is with a depleted Dallas defense. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better game script coming into this one. No Micah Parsons, no DeMarcus Lawrence, no Deron Bland. Like, if there was going to be a time to beat Dallas, it was this game, man. They were pretty weak on the defensive end, and penalties kill us a lot in this game, but it's mostly just execution, man. You got to move the ball better. You can't have these self-inflicted wounds. I don't have any, new takes. I'm pretty disappointed in the Cowboys offense. I'm pretty disappointed in the Steelers offense. It's like the same old shit for both of these teams, man. The Steelers can't move the ball, and the Cowboys eke out a win against a football team that's not great. Like, I don't know, man. I feel really similarly about both of these teams as I did coming into this football game, man.
I do think there are some positive takeaways for the Cowboys here, just because of the circumstances, just because of the fact that you mentioned all the key defensive dudes who you're down Brandon Cooks on offense. Like, they were really banged up in the trenches, and they just found a way to win. It wasn't pretty. I did think they moved the ball very well on this Steelers defense, though. I mean, they rack up almost 450 yards of offense, and probably the most encouraging thing to me is just how they were able to rely on the run game, because the theme, as much as anything, of the first 4 games, you can talk about the Cowboys defense being abysmal, but the run game was damn near equally bad. And so it was just everything resting on the shoulders of Dak and CeeDee in this passing attack. But you see, really throughout the second half of this game, Rico Dowdle is a very solid starting running back. I have no idea why week 1 you would be giving Zeke more touches. Thank God they've moved off of that. He runs hard. He's relatively tough to bring down. He's got good vision. Like, he's just good enough for this to be a capable run game. And obviously the turnovers were bad for Dallas in this game. And that's what kept the Steelers in this game. It's not just that it's a great defensive performance, and that's always going to be what keeps them in it. It's the situational, timely plays, the TJ strip sack in the red zone, the pick in the end zone, the blocked field goal. Like, it was almost the most Steelers win possible. But Dak and the Cowboys offense came through, and that was ultimately the reason that I picked Dallas to win this game. I'm just more confident in the offense that can execute and the quarterback who I believe can play at that level. This was an up and down game for Dak. But when it comes to orchestrating a drive like that, when you need to march downfield, not a 2-minute drill, but a last final drive, prove it moment, there's just a big gap in how I view these two offenses. And I do think that's obviously the limiting factor here for Pittsburgh. And that's always going to be frustrating. And this offense may be improved, but it is still a bad offense. Let's just be real. They had 2 nice drives in the second half, but still very, very limited. The thing that stood out to me in this game, Logan, because we are aware of the Steelers' limitations fundamentally, but why wasn't their best offensive player, George Pickens, on the field more? Why wasn't he targeted more? Because I saw deep into this game, like several other receivers had significantly higher snap counts. Van Jefferson had been on the field for 40% more snaps than Pickens. He only catches 2 balls in this game. On the final drive for Pittsburgh, they get him the ball. He makes a play, but I couldn't understand why he was so phased out, not just being deliberately taken out of the game by the Cowboys, but not on the field.
Yeah, I don't really know either. And it especially doesn't make sense when like the Steelers receiving room is this thin already. Like there's no margin for not having him out there. You got Fields
Yeah.
trying to get balls to Van Jefferson late in this game. And yeah, I'm going to let you keep going. I have more to say about the Steelers offense, but I'm going to let you keep cooking here. Yeah, I don't get it, man. Like with you got to get the ball to George. It's got to be a key part of your offensive recipe week in, week out. The Steelers just aren't talented enough depth-wise to just, make up for him not making an impact on the game. He's one of our best offensive players easily. He might be the best.
He is. I think he's got to be, right? I mean, he's clearly far and away the best.
I mean, it's
weapon in
either
the
it's
receiving game.
it's him or Fields, but like just overall. But I mean, skill position-wise, it's not even close.
I mean, if we're comparing them relative to their position, I think Pickens is very
I just
clear
means in
of
terms. I
Fields.
mean, Justin's still a playmaker, but yeah, George is
Sure.
special.
He's a legitimate wide receiver 1, and in this
Yeah.
Steelers offense, that really, really stands out, and they just didn't go to him.
And I mean, that's one of my big takeaways about this game, man, is you just see how limited personnel-wise Pittsburgh is. Like, we're already depleted up front on the offensive line, and I'll give credit to them. I thought the offensive line, I know the Dallas D-line is depleted as well. I thought they played pretty well, all things considered. I continue to be disappointed by Najee, man. Najee looks like he's running in slow motion out there. We talked about that a lot, but yeah, they're just not talented enough. And I think coaching's an issue too, but I think that Arthur Smith has done a relatively good job with the card that he's been dealt here. I think the big thing that's going to come up after this game, Carson, is as it is with any team that's on a losing streak like the Steelers are now that it's 2 weeks in a row. And because Tomlin hasn't named a starter moving forward, I feel like the conversation is just naturally going to drift back to the Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson conversation. And Chris Collinsworth hinted at this a little bit during the broadcast, and I thought he was kind of dense in the way that he described it. He said this nonsense about like balancing timelines, talking about, do you think you're a Super Bowl contender or are you rebuilding? And that's what's going to be the gauge of whether the Steelers go with Wilson or Fields. That has no bearing to me whatsoever on this quarterback conversation. The Pittsburgh Steelers have one job every single week, and that is to win the football game. The question is, what quarterback gives the Steelers the best chance to win football games? None of that other nonsense that Collinsworth was talking about matters. We're here to win. And the fact of the matter is, I still think it's Justin Fields.
Agreed.
Am I underwhelmed by Justin in these games? Yeah, a lot. I wanted more out of this game, and he's played better in every single game. This is his worst game that I've seen from Fields as a starter. You have the overwhelmed part of it where he looks like he's just overtasked. You have him putting the ball in harm's way, and we're not having methodical drives. But again, I don't think this is like all on Justin Fields. They're not dynamic. We can't run the ball. Nobody fears us running the football. Najee's slow, man. The guy is like stuck in first gear eternally. He's running through mud, man. And like, I like Najee, and he can eat carries up, and he's decent in the receiving game, but he's not a difference maker. I still think the biggest limiter of this offense is not having explosive skill position talent or guys who can win one-on-one. The only upper echelon skill position player that we have is George Pickens. Next is probably Pat Freiermuth, and Pat is close to average. Like, they're just limited. And that's why I picked Dallas to win this game. Like, I always think the Steelers have a chance, but it is such a rigid recipe. And they almost get it done. Like, I got to tip my cap. The Steelers are competitive, but it's like this. and it's really hard to replicate. You need all these freak outlier plays. You need Dak to gift you 2 picks. You need us to come up with that strip sack fumble.
Mm-hmm.
You need us to block the field goal. You need us to force the fumble at the goal line right at the end. The play happened, but you have to recover that ball. It's such a specific formula. And I'll just reference 2 weeks ago when we did power rankings, and it's like, this is the difference. Why Dallas can still be very, very close at being a real contender and beating real football teams, and why the Pittsburgh Steelers can't. It sucks, man. It breaks my heart every year having to face this hard, sad reality of the Steelers offense, but it's just not good enough to do anything meaningful in this sport. And it is so deeply frustrating because I saw it looming. You could see, it was like a slow car crash, Carson, as a Steelers fan. You could see the game that was going to come down to the Steelers needing to hold up defensively, and the Cowboys just break through. It felt like they were going to break through all game long, and they do at the end. And this is why the Cowboys are going to be closer to me in the power rankings. I don't care how bad their defense is. Dak is going to be able to lead you on a drive to win the game every single week. You just got more confidence in the offense, man. And the Steelers offense still feels college. Like, the Steelers are never going to be close to cracking my top 10 in the power rankings this season until I see something drastically different from the offense. And the Cowboys are always going to be looming there because Dak can make plays when you need to. And he's a great quarterback. Like, and this is an ugly game from Dak, but you don't need to do a whole lot to beat the Steelers, man. I'm disappointed, Carson. I'm steadily disappointed by the Steelers offense, man.
I feel for you, man. It's tough when for years and years their identity has just been this very run heavy sort of grinded out offense, but at the same time, like, they're routinely one of the least efficient run games in football. That's been the case again this year, and that's where I think when Jalen Warren is healthy, man, I mean, to me, he's the second most dynamic playmaker in this offense. And I do think that when he's back out there, they need to get him more touches than Najee. Najee, as you say, like, he can take that load physically.
He doesn't pop when he gets the ball out of the backfield.
He's the slowest starting running back in football. And he has been basically since he came to the league, man. He just doesn't move with that sort of explosiveness. He breaks tackles, absolutely. But what difference does it make if you break one tackle, but you're already in the midst of a bunch of traffic because you couldn't get past anybody at the line of scrimmage?
And sorry, back to the original point I was going to make on the QB battle. I just got sidetracked because I'm wallowing in the Steelers offensive shit. To me, it's about winning football games, and I would not hear an argument out for Russell Wilson being more well-equipped because the comp that Collinsworth wanted to make is Super Bowls, and I get it. Russell Wilson has the experience. Like, he is a top 25 quarterback of all time, right? Regardless of where he's fallen from, Russ still holds that mantle, and I understand him having this this sort of legacy thing, but the legacy thing to me doesn't matter. It's like Russ's tape has sucked the past 2 years in Denver, and the thing that made Russ always so special was his physical gifts, the ability to extend plays and to scramble and get out of the pocket and make off-time stuff happen. And now that that physical ability is gone, I just don't see any sort of edge that Russ has over Fields other than the fact that he has started more games than Fields, and he started in 2 Super Bowls. I just think that Fields' athletic advantage, I think he's got a bigger arm at this point in his career. He's way more mobile. I just think that trumps anything that Russ can give us at the quarterback position. So I know this is going to be the biggest storyline for Pittsburgh probably coming out of this game because people are bored. But I just staunchly believe that Justin Fields is going to give us the best chance to win football games moving forward.
I agree. And even though this is a very underwhelming performance, it's like, what was the formula for Pittsburgh going to be in this game? Ideally, it's going to be running the hell out of the football outside the tackles against these decimated edges. It's normally a strength of this Cowboys defense. Not only are they down their 2 stars, they lose Marshawn Nealon in this game. They couldn't do that. So it's all about expectations. My expectations for Justin Fields is that he manages games. He doesn't make back-breaking mistakes. And he makes a couple plays with his legs, 1 or 2 when you need him, and maybe he connects on a deep ball to George Pickens. And he didn't really do those big-time plays, although, again, they did have 2 touchdown drives in the second half, which for the Steelers, not bad. But, like, he still only has 2 turnovers on the year. I just don't know what you've seen from Justin Fields that makes you think, yeah, he's the problem, or he's worse than we expected, or he's worse than what we've seen from Russell Wilson. Like, your quarterback situation isn't going to be good. Your offense isn't going to be good. I think Fields has played more than well enough to keep the job. I would say overall up to this point, he has absolutely overachieved my expectations. They weren't very high, but he's been solid.
I agree. And people in the chat right now are referencing Russell Wilson's stats over the past 2 years. I'll throw some back at you. No quarterback attempted more throws within the line of scrimmage than Russell Wilson, within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and throws at the line of scrimmage. He was so limited in Denver's offense. He never threw over the middle of the field. Yes, all of the numbers are going to tell you that Russell Wilson is still an elite quarterback because he's efficient, because he threw a lot of TDs
not all
last
the
year.
Numbers. Let's be honest. One number, touchdown interception ratio from the 2023 season.
It's going to tell you
the fact that in the 2022 season, he was on having more bathrooms than touchdowns in his house watch for the entire year.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. It's like the numbers will suggest that he's way better than he is at this point in his career. Like,
a competitive football team benched him for Jarrett Stidham, Logan. It was that clear.
Exactly. And like, I know the Bears gave up on Justin Fields, but I still feel he's very talented. You can gimmick plays up for him. Like the individual aspect that he can run the ball with his legs, and he's that kind of weapon on the ground that trumps anything Russell Wilson can do for my football team at this point in his career. So yeah, I just want to put that one definitively to bed, man. I'm not going to bat for Russ anymore.
No, he's not comfortable throwing over the middle of the field. He is a sack-taking machine because he takes too long to make decisions, but he's not nearly the same athlete play extender that he was. Like, Russ has been seeing ghosts, man. Russ has been a limiter. I think that is clear. I'm with you. I would just take the younger, better athlete who's not making the back-breaking mistakes, and that's Justin Fields. Any more thoughts on this game before we move on to another AFC North battle? Game of the day, Logan. Bengals-Ravens. My goodness, an absolute shootout. Baltimore takes this one in overtime. They improved to 3-2. They've won 3 straight. They drop Cincy to 1-4. What do you have to take away from this one?
Yeah, I want to do a quick recap if anybody missed this one game. This was a shootout. They scored 31 fourth quarter points. They had 6 touchdowns to open the fourth quarter. Both of these teams just trading haymakers. The ending sequence, Burrow threw an interception on a slant to Marlon Humphrey. Tucker hits the game-tying 56-yard field goal. This is nuts, dude. Lamar fumbles a snap in OT, seemingly setting up Cincy to win this one. Cincy doesn't feel the urgency, I guess. They got a little too comfortable. They run the ball 3 times with Chase Brown. McPherson misses the 53-yard field goal. It's not McPherson's fault. This was a muffed hold by the punter. And then Derrick Henry just puts this thing to bed, breaks a big run inside the 10-yard line, and Tucker boots a chip shot to win the game. My big takeaway is the one that I've had kind of about the Ravens through the start of the season, and just this is the best offense the Ravens have ever had in the Lamar era. And this game really proved it, because I think that's been a fundamental limiter of this Ravens team since they've really been competitive in the Lamar Jackson era. And that's not that they have trouble sustaining drives, but them putting the ball in the end zone. I think this is the best backfield in NFL history. It's the best version of the 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson through the air. Yep. 348 passing yards, 4 TDs, 55 rushing yards. He's blending that GOAT rushing threat, because he is the greatest rushing threat of all time from the QB position, in my opinion, with the mastery of passing. It's the most confident I've ever been in Lamar Jackson throwing the ball. He has one of the greatest TDs I've ever seen today to Isaiah Likely, where he fumbles the snap, plays with it for a minute, stiff arm Sam Hubbard twice, rolls out right, and makes a throw at the sideline back across the middle.
Within ridiculous, a yard ridiculous of stuff. Going out of bounds.
Yeah. I mean, basically as he's going out of bounds.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, the other component of the greatest backfield, I think, in NFL history. So every bit of the threat he once was. A 51-yard rushing TD in this one. Has an 87-yard rushing TD last week against Buffalo, where he also had 200 rushing yards. And this is also the deepest receiving core that I think Baltimore's ever had. Zay Flowers has gotten better. Isaiah Likely is better. Mark Andrews is getting involved. Rashad Bateman looked all right today. And I'm slowly building more and more confidence in the offensive line. I just trust this offense more than I ever have before. And in a playoff setting where maybe the defense doesn't hold on, they have to go toe-to-toe with a Kansas City, or they have to go toe-to-toe with a Buffalo. I know that we saw them lose to Kansas City, but that one was super close. I just think that they're not going to get boat raced. I trust this offense in a different way than I have from other years. I am a little bit worried about the Ravens defense. I know this is a unique challenge versus the Bengals, but Burrow was picking apart the zone. Chase was wreaking havoc. He has a 70-yard TD on a screen pass. He also catches a 41-yard bomb. It was just busted coverage after busted coverage in this game. And so that concerns me a little bit just post Mike McDonald. But I'm really impressed with this Ravens offense, man. It has been everything it was cracked up to be preseason over these past 3 weeks. And it seems like they're turning the corner for the better for the rest of this season.
I agree, dude. I've been super impressed by Baltimore and had high expectations for them in the preseason, had them going to the AFC title game, but I was a little worried about that line through 2 weeks. Not anymore. I just think Lamar is playing at such a ridiculously high level. Derrick Henry is so dominant within this offense. I'm with you in terms of the depth of weapons. I mean, Charlie Kohler steps up in this game. Like, they're having multiple tight ends. They had 3 legitimate pass catching tight ends in the game, and they're running vertical routes. Like, no, it's not a stacked group in the traditional sense, like in terms of top end talent, but I do like the variety. I also do want to shout out the Cowboys there, because with Cooks down, I thought that Tolbert was awesome in that game. I thought Jake Ferguson was awesome in that game. They made some big plays that were desperately needed. But Lamar, man, just continues to instill more and more confidence in me. I was adamant last year about the fact that he had progressed as a passer and was playing at a level there that we hadn't seen before. And then I thought that he let us down in the AFC title game against Kansas City. And I thought the play calling was bad in that game, right? There were multiple factors, but ultimately Lamar wasn't the level of passer that he needed to be in that game. And I was surprised by that. And I was disappointed by that. But man, I mean, this is one of the best games that we've ever seen from him as a pure passer. I mean, he is just throwing dots over the middle of the field. He is processing the game at such a high level. And as he is doing these unbelievable things, extending plays, it's always eyes downfield to hit on those big chunk plays through the air. On the year, Logan, Lamar's got 11 total touchdowns, almost 1,600 total yards. He's averaging 8 yards per pass and 7 yards per rush. I mean, this is what he was last year, right? He is simultaneously one of the 5 most efficient passers and runners in football. You put Derrick Henry in that backfield. How do you stop that? Man, I am really, really impressed. All you need is for Lamar to play like this in the postseason, and you can beat anybody.
Yeah, dude. It's going to take, I think, him finally doing it just because of how bad Lamar's track record has been. But that's the thing that I want to emphasize to people. I don't draw conclusions just based off one games. I think the NFL and, it's how you don't want to judge an NBA player. And I know we can all get caught up in the moment, but how you judge an NBA player based off one series in the playoffs. Like, that's the point of these games. But with Baltimore, I do get a different feeling. And you talk about the offensive game plan in that game too. When you have Derrick Henry in the backfield, you're not going to go away from the run game ever like you would. With Dobbins and Edwards, it makes a little bit more sense where maybe you would lean on Lamar a little more heavy. With Derrick, you just got to get him the rock. And I feel just completely different about this offense. And Lamar's demeanor too behind the scenes, I have loved. I know this is like a little thing, but like when Marlon Humphrey went live on the plane and he's like, bro, like,
oh, you ate that up, didn't you?
I did,
you
man. And
white man, you loved that.
I'm talking shit to the Bengals chick. I don't know if you saw that before the game. She was like, who they? Bengals gonna beat them tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, it's gonna be her fault. Like, Lamar knew, man. What I'm saying is Lamar just seems a different level of locked in this year where I don't get it means something. And the Ravens are playing like they got a chip on their shoulder. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl preseason. I picked them. I've said on here that I picked them to win before. I picked the Lions to beat Baltimore. I would still go with that prediction right now because I like sticking to my guns, but Baltimore's got a different caliber offense, even the Detroit. Like, I think I would probably leave Baltimore as the team that I pick. Again, as for power rankings purposes, I need to see the Chiefs lose before I drop them out of that one spot, but Baltimore's on their heels. I firmly believe that. On the other side of this coin, the contender that some people had in the Super Bowl, the Bengals, they dropped to 1-4 on the season. I want to be clear about something. People love drawing conclusions about quarterbacks based on team results. This is not Joe Burrow or the offense's fault. I feel you as the NerdSesh audience are smarter than that, and you should already know that, but I will reiterate it here. 392 yards in this game, 30 of 39, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. with a passer rating of 137. He is number 1 in passing TDs. He is number 2 in passer rating. He is number 6 in passing yards per game. And he only has 3 turnovers through 5 games. It's also not Jamar Chase's fault. He has 10 catches, 193 yards, and 2 TDs in this game. And they've been great together. Since T. Higgins has also returned, this offense has not missed a single beat. The reason they lose this game, to me, in my opinion, the 3 straight runs in overtime is crazy to me. The fact that the Bengals are one of the best run-stopping units in football, and I get that you have a lot of confidence in McPherson. I do too, and you should make that field goal. You're not accounting for the holder messing up the snap. My thing is you've been getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage all day. I'm letting Joe Burrow get at least one throw off 100%. To get us closer. A field goal over 50 yards is not a gimme by any means necessary. And knowing that if you miss that you're going to give the Ravens a short field, to me, that says all the more reason about throwing the football in that situation. So I put a little bit of this on Zach Taylor, but obviously this loss is on the defense. They're just bad. I don't know why anybody's surprised at this point. I'm not expecting the Bengals to magically turn some sort of, corner. And Burrow said as much after the game. He said, this team, and good on leader Joe, this team is not at a championship level right now. What he means is this defense is not at a championship level right now. They can't get pressure. They have the 3rd worst pressure rate of anybody in the NFL now in the league today. That's behind the Arizona Cardinals for a little bit of context. And they can't stop the run. They allow the 3rd most rushing yards per game this season, over 150 per game. The Bengals defense is a joke. I don't put any of this on Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has blown me away with how efficient he has been, with how accurate. And this is a predictable offense too. They can't really Chase Brown has been good in spots, but they can't reliably run the football. Joe Burrow is been everything that he's been cracked up to be. It has been all on the defense. And I don't take the Bengals seriously, man. They're not a serious team with a defense like this.
No, we've been saying this, dude. I mean, we were saying this preseason, and it's only become more and more clear. Burrow, the last 4 weeks has been pretty awesome. I mean, week 1, he was bad, and this offense was bad. But since then, you look at 2 of the games that they've lost. Week 3 against Washington, I mean, he was basically perfect in that game. This game, he was great overall. The only spot where you have to criticize Burrow is you cannot give the ball away when you're in field goal range, up 3 with 3 minutes left. That's the only blemish. And the only other blemish on this offense, I'm with you, besides the fact that they just can't run the ball, but we've known that. That's always been the case, was the play calling in overtime. I just think, as you said, playing just for a 53-yarder, when you've put up 38 points, I mean, you've been moving the ball at will through the air, but you have really, really struggled to run the ball. Just mix in at least one high percentage pass. If you pick up a 6-7 yard gain, you've got it. And I get it. It was the hold that caused the miss, but come on, man, just put yourself in a position to either drive all the way down the field, which you've been doing damn near at will, or make it a higher percentage field goal.
It's like scared money, man. It's like scared money. Listen,
and if you are the Ravens, please run the ball all you want, right? That's a safe, high probability way for you to increase your chances of having a good, easy field goal or getting all the way into the end zone. When you can't run the ball, don't run the ball 3 times, especially when everybody knows that you're running the ball. I thought that did kind of cost them this game, but as great as their offense looks, the defense just looks worse. I mean, they're allowing 29 points per game on the year. They allow 520 yards, 6.8 yards per play in this one. You mentioned the pass rush has been one of the worst. They can't stop the run, one of the worst run defenses. Their secondary has been getting torched. They did not solve their problem at safety. I think Von Bell, who they brought back, is just washed. Geno Stone hasn't been as good as they would have hoped. Perhaps a bit of a Ravens defense merchant, perhaps a bit of an interceptions merchant last year. I thought he had a good season, but I also think everybody tends to look better when they're in a very talented overall defense like Baltimore's. I do think that is worth noting for Baltimore, though, that their defense hasn't been close to what it was last year, just in terms of production. They really, really could not get a stop down the stretch against Vegas. And then they really couldn't get a stop down the stretch against Dallas. I thought they looked great last week against Buffalo, but now there's several miscommunications on the back end. In this one, they allow some explosives. I still think this is a very talented defense, but they did lose some key players from last year's group, and I do want to see them improve there. But obviously, they're running laps around Cincy's defense. And the Bengals have some winnable games coming up, some very winnable games. That was always their path this year. It was just the schedule. They go Giants, Browns, and they have the Raiders in their next 4 weeks. I just think they've dug too deep of a hole, and I think that they're too flawed a football team. Like I said, as good as their offense is, their defense is every bit as bad and a little bit worse.
Yeah, I'm counting out Cincy.
100%.
I mean, they can pick up they're going to play the Browns. I can see them picking up a couple of games there. They can make it close, but when you've dug this deep a hole, I am counting you out. And with Baltimore's defense issue, last thing I wanted to mention,
Mm-hmm.
it's the corners, man. I don't know what's up with the corners. I like Humphrey. Humphrey was getting cooked today by Higgins, by Jamar. I don't know, man. They seem like they've lost a little bit of juice. And like you said, miscommunications, too, that are just uncharacteristic of a Baltimore coach defense. This team is buttoned up. They're like a well-oiled machine. And the only guy I really have confidence in the secondary this year is Kyle Hamilton. I still think Kyle Hamilton's one of the best in the game. But every other spot I'm worried about. And Humphrey has specifically just looked – I don't know, he's looked worse this year, man. Devontae had his way. Jamar has his way today. It is something to keep an eye on just in terms of, I don't know, I wonder if it's balanced itself out a little bit last year, right? It seemed like the defense was obviously it was the best in the league, the strong point of this team, and it's evened itself out a little bit this year. It is something I think it's unique that they got exposed this much because they're taking on someone like Cincinnati. But I think it speaks volumes when the Raiders can do it to you too. I think good offenses might have their way on shot plays with Baltimore. It is a little bit concerning.
That's the one thing that I think we got to continue to track, because I think offensively they figured it out. They're humming. It's just, can this team be as high level of defense as we thought preseason? But I do have to say, bro, Jamar is playing his best football ever, and that's a high bar. I mean, doing what he did to this secondary, which, as you mentioned, has had some struggles, but on paper, still very talented, unreal. He's averaging 17 yards per catch this year. It's just good old-fashioned rookie year, explosive Jamar, beating you over the top over and over again. And Joe is finding him over and over again. I can't overstate. I understand that I have had my criticisms of Burrow in relation to Josh Allen because I tire of that comparison, and I stand on everything that I've said in that conversation. But what I also reiterated as we were talking about being out on this Bengals team preseason is that Joe Burrow is far from the problem here, right? This is still a top 5 quarterback. It's a team around him that isn't good enough, and he can't single-handedly save them. Let's move on, Logan, to the upset of the day, I would say. The San Francisco 49ers just lost their second game of the year to a divisional opponent. They're now 2-3. Let's just start with this, Logan. Are you worried about the Niners?
I wouldn't say worried. I mean, these losses suck because they're in division. This is the second really tough in division loss this season for San Francisco. They blow another double-digit fourth quarter lead. They're held scoreless in the second half. And it was a catastrophic collapse. These are 2 games. This one and the game against LA, they had one. But that's why I'm not worried. They outplayed both of these teams. And again, it's just, I'm not using results-based thinking when I'm thinking about the Niners. And that may make some people angry when you run into logical fallacies, with power rankings and stuff like that. But I do think the Niners are just better than this. I'm probably, and again, man, people can get mad. I'm probably going to have the Niners still in my top 5 of power rankings. I believe in the talent of this football team. I believe in the coaching staff. I believe in Brock Purdy. They're just freak losses, and I hate just chalking it up to that. But Purdy gets a batted ball at the line of scrimmage, picked off, turns it into a field goal. San Francisco fumbles again in the red zone, which basically sinks their ship.
I mean, bro, if they have a kicker, they win this game.
Yeah, I mean, and then Purdy throws the game-losing interception. It's it reminded me of the Rams game. You miss a field goal, Stafford has a bomb touchdown, you get a bad drop, and then, the Rams have stolen it. Football games, when you don't put teams away, this can happen, man. And I'll put it on, I was disappointed with the offense. I thought they should have put more points up. But when you have this many turnovers, it's hard to win a game. They outgained the Cardinals. They performed better on third down. They just lost the turnover battle. I'm not worried. at all. Now, I am worried in the sense that I think that Seattle could wholeheartedly steal this division and at least push them, make it real close. This is a short week for the Niners. They got to go and play Seattle on Thursday Night Football. So if you're, caught reeling, thinking about this loss, all hung up on it, Seattle is a good football team. Like, they could very well steal a game from that. That is a game that I'm worried about for San Francisco, just because I do like Seattle, and I think Geno could ball his ass off and, just carry him to a win. But on the season, I don't think the NFC is that talented. Like, I think that San Francisco is going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be in the conversation. They're too talented, too well coached. And it's uncharacteristic. I'm not going to lie to you. Both of these losses, the one against the Rams, the one against Arizona, they are uncharacteristic losses for a team this talented and this well coached. But I'm not jumping off the ship, man. I still believe that San Francisco is a damn good football team. Still a top 5 football team. I'll say it, man. I still think they're that good.
Yeah, I'm not worried about them either. Now, there are a couple things that are concerning. In totality, I'm not worried about this team, especially for being 2-3. There are a couple of things, though. One of them, you mentioned the Seahawks game. I mean, just their overall schedule that's upcoming is tough. Their next 7 games are at Seattle, Chiefs, Cowboys, at the Bucks, Seahawks, Packers, Bills. Like, that could be all playoff teams. That being said, can they go 5-2 in that stretch? Absolutely. Like, who's the only other team who I'm looking at as being on even ground with them in terms of talent? Probably the Chiefs, right? Like, I expect the Niners to win most of those games. I will say their tackling was not good today. Also, though, I think it's worth pointing out that James Conner's probably the second hardest back in the league to tackle after only Derrick Henry. It was bad, but that is a tough dude to bring down. Their defense overall this year hasn't lived up to expectations, hasn't lived up to what they did last year. I'd say they've looked closer to average than great. This offensive line hasn't looked very good. Like, there are things that are imperfect with this team. There are blemishes here. I just think their talent at the end of the day is overwhelming. And you mentioned the freakishness of these losses. Like, if they have a kicker, they win this game, right? If they can take a field goal instead of having to go for it on downs, that's it. And the red zone fumble is freakish, sure, but literally just if they have a kicker, they win this game. Rams loss, they're super shorthanded. So are the Rams, but that was another freakish one. Like, I get that they've blown 2 10-point fourth quarter leads. And maybe some people look at that and they say, oh my God, they can't close these games. I don't think that's the case at all, because that's not a pattern for them. People hate Kyle Shanahan so much, Logan. Oh my God, people hate Kyle Shanahan. I don't know if it's just because he got hit with the boy genius moniker or what it is, if it's just because of the 28-3 Super Bowl or because he's lost 2 Super Bowls as a head coach, but people will literally attribute everything to him. Like, the knock on him forever has been can't win games playing from behind, right? Which I think largely is because with the Niners, he hasn't had high-level quarterback play. I think it's much more a reflection of that than his own limitations. Now people are acting like he can't win games when he's in the lead. And it's like, no, they showed a stat during the broadcast today. The Niners were 38-0 under Kyle Shanahan when they entered the fourth quarter leading by double digits. So just because you lose a game one way, one time, or even twice, when you have an established track record that says, oh, we're actually excellent in these situations under this head coach who people want to act as though he is the problem, like, it just doesn't make sense, man. I get it. They haven't been impressive by their standards, but like, they still should be 4-1. And if we're going to start the can they hold a lead discourse, like, can the most dominant rushing attack that we've seen outside of Baltimore in recent years hold a lead? Like, yes, man, I think that a Kyle Shanahan zone run offense can hold a lead. So I'm really not worried. I mentioned some of the concerns. I didn't think Brock looked very good today also, even though both his picks were deflected. But I think overall this year, we've seen him grow in his ability to create out a structure and make some of those balls he throws downfield. I don't think that he's taken a leap necessarily, but I think that he's improved by a bit. And they still have elite skill position talent. They came in today having ranked as the most efficient passing attack in football, even with some of these line issues and even down multiple key weapons at various points. They've been without CMC, but he will be back probably by the late regular season. And Jordan Mason has been great anyways. Like, I just don't see how this isn't a great offense with the results that they've produced over the last couple years with Brock Purdy and Shanahan and all these parts in place. They're only adding more talent, right? Juwan Jennings is more featured. They're going to get Ricky Pearsall involved here. And I still think this defense is too talented to at least not be above average, right? Maybe they don't reach the heights of some of the defenses we've seen in recent years. I wouldn't expect them to right now, but do I think they're an above average defense? Yes. And after all this, right after these two mind-blowing losses, they're a game back in the division to a Seattle team that I absolutely trust them more than. So no, they don't look like a powerhouse right now, but they've lost two weird games, and I just believe in their foundation. Like the schedule, it could get dicey. I still don't think it will. I think they end that slate at least 500, and I think that this is a team that wins double-digit games. I think they probably win their division, and even if they don't, even if they're a wild card team, I'd still pick them to win a playoff game.
Yeah, I think I agree. And people just always love to take the results and then build their conclusion off of it. It's like with football, man, it's going to be close. You're going to have games that swing on single plays. Like, if the Steelers had beaten the Cowboys, am I going to come out here and beat the drum for our offense? No, the offense still sucked. I'm not going to do that. And I feel like with the Niners, and again, I don't think people like the Niners because of how consistently successful they've been. I don't think they like Shanahan because he's a really good football coach. Like, and I get maybe they lost some money on Kyle. I don't know, man. But this team's very talented. As for their ultimate ceiling worries, I am worried. I don't know if San Francisco is going to make the title game again this year. But I think everything else is almost a given. And the only reason I say that is because I am worried about Christian McCaffrey and this injury. It seems weird that it has lingered this long. It seemed weird that Shanahan was that, what's the word? Just the way he tried to cover it up. The way that he was it was a little shady that he wasn't as open about how severe McCaffrey's injury was. And I get he re-aggravated it during the preseason practicing, but that will be my only concern long-term about them is if they can reach their lofty expectations and goals. And because that's the standard now for San Francisco. When you have hit your head so many times on that conference title game, Super Bowl ceiling, your expectation, the goalposts move from are you a playoff team to are you going to win the Super Bowl? And that's the standard that we hold the Niners to, right? The standard for the Steelers is can they win a playoff game because they haven't done it in 7 years. The standard for the Niners is can they win the Super Bowl because they do everything else every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I agree. Like I've been underwhelmed by the Niners, but if we're looking at the NFC, like they're still unequivocally to me in that top tier with Detroit and Minnesota, and everybody else is just playing from a deficit in terms of talent, in terms of how complete they are as football teams, in terms of how much I trust their coaching. Like they're still in that top three. So I'm definitely not hitting the panic button. How about the Cardinals end of this, Logan? Because this is a big win for them. They needed this win after dropping a couple. What do you take away for them?
I mean, I was impressed with this offense again. Kyler Murray making that clutch play to Marvin Harrison Jr. when they brought that all-out blitz. Like, that was one hell of a play. Just knowing what route your guy's going to run and knowing I got to get rid of this ball immediately, throwing it off his back foot. And he trusts Marvin Harrison Jr., man. You got to trust him to go and make that play, and he does. And I'm always impressed at this running game, man. James Conner, I'm mad that the Steelers let Conner go, man. I feel like we could have signed him back to a cheaper deal and kept him around. Pittsburgh, born and bred boy, beat cancer. Like Conner was a really easy guy to root for when he was in Pittsburgh, and I miss him a little bit. I knew he was going to have a better time, and that his struggles were because our offensive line wasn't that good. I miss him, man. He's a real good football player, but Cardinals offense can keep him in football games, man. And this defense played well today. I was really surprised because the defense sucked last week, man. That was apathetic against the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm not really moved by the defense, though, man. I mean, after the first drive, the Niners either scored or it was a turnover every drive, or they turned it over on downs when they were in scoring position. So I
just mean coverage wise, like this pass rush, I don't think is very good. I don't think the run but the coverage was way better than last week because there was a ton of busted coverage.
Oh, last week was atrocious. I still think it's a bad defense, and unfortunately, that's what I think holds back what should be a pretty fun team. But yeah, man, they run the hell out of the ball. I like their group of weapons. I really like Kyler. This doesn't really move the needle for me with the Cardinals. I would say that we know that they're capable of this, but it's good to see them get a win because I want to see them be somewhat competitive in this division, although I just worry about their defense holding them back there. All right, Logan, let's rip off the Band-Aid here. Let's talk Bills-Texans. Whew, rough one. Where do you want to start with this game? What was your biggest takeaway?
I mean, let's rip the Band-Aid off, man. Like you said, let's get it over with. I mean, it's inexcusable that the Bills didn't win this game and that this game did not at least go to overtime. I clock it all up to poor play calling and game management. I mean, you think about the end of this football game. The Bills get the ball back inside their own 5 with 32 seconds left, tied 20-20, and they run 3 straight passing plays, which are incomplete passes. So you burn like 10 seconds off the clock. Texans get the ball back. Kaimi Fairbairn boots a 59-yard game-winning field goal. Bills lose. And on that final drive, I think you at least got to run the ball once. You either need to run the ball to burn clock or you need to run the ball to burn the timeouts out of the Texans' back pocket. So when they get the ball, they have time for one Hail Mary or, just a lateral special. But there are some bigger issues in this game that cost the Bills. They don't get points off the C.J. Stroud interception, and they're held to 3 points off of the in the red zone off the fumble that they forced. But I just think about how lucky that the Bills got that they weren't losing when they got this ball back already. On their second to last drive, Houston's that is, they get an intentional grounding call, which I didn't really agree with on C.J. Stroud. I thought it was just a miscommunication with his receiver, and I get how the book judges it, but just as like with CJ's intent, it seemed like he was throwing where he thought the receiver was going to be. So in my opinion, they get bailed out by a generous intentional grounding call that pushes them out of field goal range. And at that point, you just need to cross your hands like this, clasp them together, and thank the football gods that they gifted you one that you can live to breathe to see overtime. And McDermott just said, to hell with that, man. We're going – I mean, what the fuck did you think was going to happen, McDermott? You going to magically connect on 2 30-yard passes in 30 seconds and kick a field goal? Like, look, man, I know Josh Allen is Superman, but it was just ridiculous. And so I've reached a breaking point with Sean McDermott. This is not the first instance where his game management has cost the team victories. Not to bring up bad memories for you, Carson, but I'm going to list a few. Feel free to add if you want. The divisional round last year, the DeMar Hamlin direct snap. Last year in the regular season, the 12-man on the field penalty against the Broncos ends up costing them. The Eagles game featured some classic clock management from Mr. McDermott. The 2021 divisional round against the Chiefs, Kelsey is uncovered with 13 seconds left. The wild card in 2020, when they break the playoff curse, when they finally get back in the playoffs, they go for it on 4th and 27. Like I said, I'm sure there's more, so add on if you feel, Carson. 2 of the results from the games that I listed, they fired Ken Dorsey and they fired Leslie Frazier. And so I just ask, when does it land at McDermott's feet? Because I'm not saying that these guys are good coaches. To be honest, I think the Bills are better off without these guys. I think Brady and Babbage are better coordinators. But the point I'm getting at here with McDermott is, 1, they were his hires, and 2, he's the head coach. So to me, it should always fall at his feet first when there is any major coaching error like that. And I think he deserves equal blame for those blunders. McDermott is 1-6 in overtime games. It is the worst record in overtime games in NFL history. It's tied with Dom Capers, minimum 7 games played. He's bad situationally. His track record is horrible. He is a bad game manager. He's not a good leader or a communicator from what I hear from inside the Bills locker room. And quite frankly, as an observer, I think he is dragging the Bills down. I think McDermott has gotten a disproportionate amount of credit for how good of a football coach he is, because he has one of the greatest quarterbacks that has ever played the game at his disposal. And so I think people look at his winning record and they look at, don't get me wrong, I think he's a good defensive coach, and I think he has done good situationally when he has had players hurt. And I don't want to take anything away from him in that regard. But I think he gets a lot of his mistakes and flaws covered up because he's got Josh Allen at QB. And he's hurting this football team, man. I don't know if the Bills are ever going to wake up and realize it because they paid him after the disaster that was last season. I would have let his ass go. I would have kicked him to the curb, and I would have gotten somebody new. But that is neither here nor there. They've locked the guy up, Carson. I think that the Bills front office is blind to the issue. I don't know if they're going to figure it out, but I put this one. I lay it at the feet of McDermott because you guys outplayed the Texans handedly in the second half. I thought the offense turned it up. I thought the defense clamped down. Like, you couldn't have asked for a better second half from this team. And I just thought McDermott let them down, man. I'm at wit's end, man. Like, we're not reaching Doug Peterson levels of, the seat is hot, but I got to think the seat is hot, right? Like, he's not a good football coach, man.
I don't think the seat is very hot, man. And that was the one silver lining that I tried to find when the Bills were 5-5 after 10 games last year. I was like, you know what? Maybe this is just the moment that leads them to realize that Sean McDermott is not a good head coach of this football team at this stage. Was he valuable in overhauling the Bills defense? Yes. Is he a good defensive floor raiser when you mention making the most out of dudes you pick up off the scrap heap? Yes, we've seen that time and again. Does the bend don't break thing work for the most part in the regular season? Sure. These soft zone looks, yeah. He's a good defensive coach in those situations. However, in high stakes playoff games, has he been a good defensive coach? No. Those zones have gotten picked apart. And then you have a guy who is obviously bringing you nothing offensively and has had some issues just in terms of the last coordinator, Ken Dorsey, who was an idiot. Joe Brady, I've been very disappointed with over these last two games. But you're not getting a great offensive mind, right, when he is your head coach. Terrible, terrible, terrible in terms of situational game management. And based on everything that we heard last year and the scathing report that came out about him, not somebody who actually takes personal accountability within the locker room. And as we all know, is a 9/11 terrorist enthusiast, somebody who looks up to the 9/11 terrorists. This is the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. All that being said, Logan, I agree with a lot of what you said. I do want to be clear about a couple things, though, before I get into talking about specifically the end of the game and McDermott overall. The Bills did not deserve to win this game. The Bills were gift-wrapped several opportunities. You mentioned the turnovers. They did not capitalize. Yes, they outplayed the Texans in the second half, not by enough considering the opportunities they were handed. This was not a good performance from the Bills. Josh Allen did not play well this game, okay? All of these things are true. They were given many chances. They did not do enough with them. Nevertheless, I think the coaching staff cost them this game with their idiocy at the end. And that is both McDermott and Joe Brady, because I think that this is a combination of the two of them philosophically in that spot. It's Joe Brady who's drawing up the play calls. And you know what? Some of it goes on Josh Allen as well in terms of who he's throwing the ball to and just in terms of the fact that he's your star player. He's your best player. You put the ball in his hands, he has to make a play. But you mentioned you get bailed out with the intentional grounding call on the Texans. Now, that is by rule the correct call. I just don't like the rule. A call just like that went against the Bills last year. Actually, I would argue it was more egregious because, like, Josh threw the ball in bounds. He threw a ball downfield. It was just a choice route, and they miscommunicated on it. But whatever. I think that CJ intends to throw the ball in the vicinity of a receiver. He's under duress, but I just don't like that. I understand it's the rule. I don't like it. But that gives you the ball at your own 3 with 32 seconds, no timeouts. Think about all the factors in this situation. You have one of the worst starting kickers in football, Tyler Bass, who has been shakier this year than ever. You're facing a team with 3 timeouts and one of the best kickers in football. Kaimi Fairbairn has been unbelievable this year. He's a guy you know is good from up to 60, basically. And I, Logan, philosophically am super pro aggression, especially when you have Josh Allen. Like 4th and 5, the touchdown play. I was so happy when they actually snapped that ball. I couldn't tell you how worried I was that they were just going to do a bullshit hard count, take the offense off the field, take the delay of game. Understanding situationally, you're down 10. You haven't been getting stops. This is a gotta have it moment. Let Josh do his thing. And he did. Like, I'm all with that. I'm always for going for it on 4th and shorts with the Bills. Generally, if you're at midfield or whatever, like, just put the ball in Josh's hands. Let him win you the game. This is a situation, though, where I felt pretty strongly, at least on 1st down, run the ball up the middle. because our pal Spawnhour tweeted out and he said, actually, I didn't think it was that bad that the Bills threw the football. They had to get a first down. And I presume his thinking there is, well, Josh is your best player, right? See if he can get you a first down. What was so mind-boggling to me is, based on the play design, it felt like they were trying to get the first down in one play. It didn't feel like they understood that they had 3 plays to do it. Like, first down, what do? They throw a 50-50 ball to Keon Coleman. Second down, they take a shot play to Matt Collins. Like, the passing game had been brutally ineffective in this game. Down Khalil Shakir, it was brutal. They weren't getting separation. The line was struggling to protect. That's the other factor here. Like, you take a sack, game over, because you're back on your own 3. You hold in the end zone, game over. There are so many negative outcomes when you don't just put the ball in the air, but you're trying to push it downfield. If you're going to go just for that one first down, and you want to throw the ball, fine. Get a screen in there. Get something high percentage where you're going to complete the ball. You should at least get it to second and manageable. Or you run the ball on first down, and then you go with the screen on second down. Like, it felt to me like they were trying to score. It didn't feel to me like they were trying to just get one first down, because on the first 2 downs, they were aggressive, and they attempted low percentage plays. And what are the outcomes there? Like, if you actually have the intent to try to score, you either get 60 plus yards in like 4 plays using only the sidelines, because you can't put the ball on the field of play. Like, you just don't have enough time. You can maybe do that once, and you have to gain 30 something yards, get up there and spike the ball. And then you have a chance at a field goal if you do that. And considering that, as I mentioned, your offensive line has struggled, you could get a safety in multiple ways because of that. You could just press, you turn the ball over in your own territory, you lose. You go 3 and out on all passes, and then Houston keeps all their timeouts. Your punter's crowded back in your own end zone, and they're going to be in strike zone within one play, and they just need like 5 yards to get a field goal. And no, they didn't need all 3 of their timeouts to do that, but if you were able to run the ball 3 times, make them burn all of them, if you were able to get the first down, right, by setting up a second and manageable by running the ball or getting a screen, just something to gain some positive yardage, then they wouldn't have been able to do that. And so obviously that's what happened with the 3 and out. And I was disappointed by the play calling. Joe Brady has let me down these last couple weeks. Like, if this offense started even on the 7-yard line and the threat of the safety weren't so prevalent and the field position weren't going to be so good for the Texans, if you punt without gaining any yardage, like, I might have felt differently. I might have said, okay, you can be a little bit more aggressive, but it was such exceptionally bad field position for the Bills that when you just go through the outcomes, there are so many more negatives than positives trying to be aggressive there. Like, Josh has to find somebody. He has to complete a pass. Okay, I'm not letting him off the hook. Why are you risking it, though?
Well, I mean, it felt like the Bills were playing like they were losing in that game. That's what was so strange, is it's like they were playing like they were trailing by 2 or 3 in that situation, and they needed to get points. It just didn't make any sense, man. It's situationally bad play calling. That's all it is.
Yeah, it was disastrous. I really thought that cost them the game. I understand you have to get a first down, but my God, dude, don't just leave it on these low percentage plays when, again, your receivers haven't been separating, protection hasn't been holding up, like, nothing has been in sync with the passing game. Why do you think that's suddenly going to change now when you don't need to take a risk like that? It was just maddening to me. And McDermott is consistently horrible situationally.
Yeah, and on another point that you mentioned, you brought up the receiving group. In the first half, this offense put up 3.2 yards per play. Josh was completing. He had 3.1 yards per completion. He was 6 of 18. I do want to cut him a little slack in the first half. I thought we saw some really bad drops. Keon Coleman had a bad one on a 3rd down. Mac Hollins had a deep drop. There's another 3rd and 9 where Mac Hollins is coming over the middle. Josh is making a throw on the run. It's not like a perfectly thrown football, but it hits Mac in the hands. He's got to make the catch.
That was tough.
I do think
there were a couple legitimate drops for sure. There were also some where it's like it hit the receiver in the hands, but like Josh is under duress, right? He's flushed out of the pocket. He's trying to make a hard throw, and it's like it's very close, but it's tough to put it on the receiver as a drop, I would say. But I'm with you. There were a lot of near misses in the first half, balls that hit receivers in the hands.
Well, and when Houston's just connecting on everything, it just makes it feel that much worse when they're getting all the momentum early, drive after drive down the field, and you can't hit on anything. It sucks the life out of your offense. But I really do think you felt the loss of Shakir in this game, and you felt
Absolutely.
the lack of depth in the receiving core. And that's where, this, I'm not making this a Diggs thing, but when we're looking at like the one position group, I wish they had another really good receiver. And I think Keon Coleman can get there, but they need Shakir. It's abundantly clear, man. Like that, the guy's an actual playmaker. And, this is like no shade at Dalton Kincaid, at Keon, at any of those guys. But Shakir's the best wide out here. And this offense felt like it really lacked something today without him.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree, dude. Mac Hollins was tied for the most targeted player on the day. He was the featured player in this offense. And Shakir just brings a really multidimensional skill set. Part of his value is just you can get him the ball in space, right? You just get him out there on a screen. He can make people miss. He's got crazy balance. He's shifty. And so, like, it's not on Josh every single time to make something happen himself. The other dudes just couldn't do that. Kincaid has been effective catching screens, but I thought that this was a very mad game from him. He had a bad drop. There was a shot play downfield where Josh missed him. Josh underthrew him. Josh didn't play well in this game, but it was tough, man. It was tough circumstances. Like, he was under so much pressure in the first half, and dudes just aren't separating. And I didn't like the play calling. I did not from Brady. I thought on early downs in the first half, a lot of it was too conservative, even though the run game was more effective on the day and they were kind of getting behind the sticks early. There's one play that stands out in my mind where it's a 3rd and 10, and they have MVS run a 10-yard hitch and try to box out Derek Stingley and just make that play, right? Just be the bigger athlete in that spot. And I just thought to myself, why is that MVS's route? Why is this deep threat MVS instead of basketball player, bouncy, explosive Keon Coleman, who literally excels at doing just that? Like, I get that you're shorthanded, but like, you still have the dude who is the best option to run a route like that. It was rough from the receivers. They desperately need Shakir, but I was probably more discouraged by the pass protection just because that was the aspect of this offense that I wondered most if it would hold up. I wasn't really worried about the receiving room with the loss of Diggs, with Gabe Davis leaving, as long as Khalil Shakir is on the field. The last couple years, last couple weeks definitely have not been good from the group, but I still think Shakir changes things. But I was just like, is this line as good as it seems to be playing right now? And I don't really think so. So there's just nothing easy in this game. Josh missed a couple throws. He definitely tried a lot of tight window throws. He put a few balls in harm's way, but they were really tough circumstances. And I think that a lot of those throws he kind of had to force. Like, he has to be better, no doubt, unequivocally. And the Bills really, really need Shakir. On the other side of the ball, even though the defense did pretty damn well in the second half overall, I thought a lot of that was just situational, forcing turnovers and facing a bad run game that I thought Houston was relying on way too much in the second half. It felt like they took a lead and then they were like, all right, we're just going to run the ball and bleed clock. And it's like, you just don't do that very well. And in the third quarter, there were penalties that were putting the Texans behind the sticks. And then that's when the Bills bend don't break defense is at its absolute best, right? When you can rush 4, drop 7 into coverage on 1st and 20, it's like, yeah, okay, you just have to keep them from getting 20 yards over 3 plays. That's not hard to do. And even then, they allowed too many 3rd and long conversions. They allowed 425 yards, 6.3 yards per play on the day. The pass rush improved in the second half, but it was a 0 in the first half. It was not clutch situationally. Really very little pressure on 3rd down throughout the game. Cole Bishop, rookie safety starting, had a brutal mistake on the Nico Collins long touchdown where he just got caught with his eyes on the threat of the run and just fell asleep and needed to be much deeper. That's on him. So, like, you'll get Milano back. You'll get Taron Johnson back. Terrell Bernard came back and he played a good game and he made a great play with an interception where he took away a route to the tight end and then was able to get a break on the ball that was intended for Diggs. Like, that was huge. The Bills needed that at that moment. But I just haven't liked how this defense has played against actual good offenses over the last 2 weeks. I do think they'll be solid. McDermott defenses are solid. And this is a more talented group than we've seen just because they have been really, really pretty decimated by injuries to some of their best players. But even at full strength, are they a Super Bowl defense? I don't know that I'm sold on that. I need to see more from the pass rush. I do think the linebacking core has potential to be better. I like the secondary. Like, I think it's a solid defense. I think it can be an above average defense, but I think I just got too high on this team, Logan. I do. I think that I was very encouraged by the first few weeks. I thought that team was really humming, but I think against higher level competition, like we've seen some of these flaws exposed. The offensive line, the receiving core, which I still think will probably be overstated by a bit because Shakir wasn't out there, but man, it was brutal in this game and it was not good last week. It was really, really bad early last week as well. And some of the defensive stuff. Last week, I do think a lot of that was you're down both Milano and Bernard, but this game, I still wasn't impressed by the defense overall, again, with the exception of a couple timely plays. So they'll absolutely win this division. Buffalo's going to waltz to winning this division. They will host a playoff game because of that. They can still win a playoff game. Like, this is still a really good football team, I do believe. And they're probably going to go on a bit of a win streak now because their schedule's about to lighten up. But flaws have come to light over these last 2 weeks, and they just lost to two of their biggest rivals in the AFC race. Like the Texans and Ravens are both right in the mix, and both those teams outplayed the Bills and they beat them. So the cause for optimism is everybody's flawed in this conference. You have a superhero at quarterback. I do believe in that. I still believe this will be a very effective offense because of Josh Allen. But yeah, I'm not as high on this team as I was 2 weeks ago. Obviously, it's been sobering. I think I was maybe a little bit high.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I do think you make a good point when you're talking about this for playoff outcomes and what this means in terms of seeding. Like the Texans and Ravens are going to be very close in terms of record at the end of the season. And the Bills had a little bit of a lead. I think the Bills should be really glad that Nico Collins left this game with a hamstring injury after that shot play because I don't know, man. I was disappointed with the coverage today. And CJ Stroud is so special, dude. I just want to give him more props. Like, he makes plays.
Yeah.
He's CJ Stroud's awesome. I mean, the guy is, if there's a busted coverage, if there's an open zone, he's going to find it. Nico Collins is one of the best wideouts in the league.
I will say one thing just in relation to Nico. It was, I'll use the word again, sobering, just seeing you take out the number one option in both these offenses. Nico is obviously a better number one option than Khalil Shakir, but you take both those guys out. Good Lord, the Texans just had way more playmakers on the field, man. You're talking about Diggs and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz compared to, again, Matt Collins being the most targeted player. Like, boy, the Bills need Shakir on the field. If Shakir's not on the field, like, it gets really, really ugly really fast.
Well, and it makes you wonder at this point in the season before the trade deadline if it is worth pulling the trigger on another wide receiver. And maybe not like a big Devontae Adams type move, but maybe a little bit something more on the margins, like, I don't know, Tyler Boyd maybe in Tennessee or something like that. Like, I'm just thinking about depth pieces, but it makes you wonder if they should make a move. And I am monitoring just the shot plays from Buffalo because I do believe in this pass rush. I think they're better. I think they're better across the board, except everywhere but safety, man. That secondary, I'm still not Douglas and Taron Johnson at full health, although just Douglas safety, just safety basically. But that's what I'm monitoring. I'm coming a little bit more down on Buffalo too, dude. And I'm wondering, do I rank them? I'm kind of debating like Buffalo, San Francisco, and then Minnesota and Houston, how I order those teams when we're going into power rankings this week, man.
I think Minnesota's got to be number one. Minnesota just hasn't shown flaws like all these other teams. Sam Darnold, you could argue, could be.
They showed a little something today, yeah.
Still 5-0, man. Still controlled every game they've played in.
True that, man.
I don't know.
True that.
They're just very, very complete. And I think that the Bills are not as complete as I thought they were and as I hoped they were. Listen, I still think, again, this is going to be easily a double-digit win team. But, like, you know, I was singing, hey, why can't this team win the Super Bowl? This is the best team in football a couple weeks ago. I just don't think that is true anymore. I don't want this to be like a RIP to the season for the Bills because I don't think that's the case at all. Again, next 5 weeks, they're going Jets, Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins, Colts. This team could easily be 8-2. But last week I was saying they could be 9-1 after that, and that's not happening. They are not that sort of juggernaut. They're flawed. And I think good football teams over the last 2 weeks have made that clear. But also, if people start coming out with the Bills missing the playoff takes, nobody do that because who the hell is going to win the AFC East over them? Nobody. They're going to easily win the division. How about the Texans side of this, Logan? What do you have to say for Houston?
I mean, I don't know if we learned anything terribly new about Houston. CJ Stroud's the guy. I trust CJ to make plays when they need to. I've been disappointed that they haven't run up the score more. Like I've been expecting more. I get that Nico Collins goes out of this game, and still they're so damn dynamic. You don't even mention like Dalton Schultz, bro. Dalton Schultz is out there making plays on your head. Like,
Oh yeah, he was.
I've been impressed with this offensive line, man. I think the receiving core is amazing. I like the defense. They're talented. The Texans are solid. They're a solid team. They're not going to let you off the hook. And Fairbairn's a real weapon. Like, I think I like the Bills still more than the Texans. And that, again, man, just because the results, people may not like that. But the Texans are real solid, dude. I could see them making – I could definitely see the Texans winning a playoff game. I might expect it at this point. They're going to run away with their division too.
I think with a healthy defense, I like the Bills more.
I do too, just because of the ceiling that I think.
Offense.
And I just trust, I trust Josh a little bit more, dude. But CJ's closing in, dude. CJ is might move up my always changing QB rankings, man. CJ's so damn good.
Yeah, CJ's really, really good. He does have the 2 turnovers in this one. The pick was bad, but also it was a great play by Bernard. I mean, he had his back turned to CJ at the time that he threw the ball. He took away 2 routes in one play. It was pretty sick. But what was really impressive from this game, well, I thought he was great on 3rd down. I also thought his escapability was just fantastic. I mean, the Bills could not finish a sack on him. There's really nothing more infuriating to watch as a fan rooting against somebody, I feel like, than when the quarterback just keeps getting out. You think you're going to have a big negative play, and then all of a sudden, once he's out in space, broken play, like it's probably going to be bad for you as a defense. And he kept delivering, and he was very composed against the few blitzes that the Bills did dial up. I like a lot about Houston. I really do. I mean, their weapons are amazing. I like a lot about this defense. I think the pass rush is excellent. I think the secondary is excellent. Again, I mean, I thought that they were just dominant in coverage. Stingley and Lassiter both, I think, are really, really good. I think the ceiling for Houston is just going to be determined by, first of all, their run game offensively, which hasn't been impressive to me. Shout out Dare. Like, he's done his thing as a receiving back, but the run game is not good for them. They had one drive where it was going for a little bit, but overall not efficient. It hasn't been ever since week 1. And defensively, I think it's going to be their ability to stop the run and their linebackers, really. I think that's the potential vulnerability on this defense. That's where they've struggled. So they have holes. Like, the Texans are very fun because they are so good at such fun positions, right? Quarterback, receiver. It's awesome. They have great pass rushers. And these are very important positions too. But I worry about the run game and the ability to stop the run both. So shout out to them. They're 4-1. I think they're a flawed football team. I think the Bills are a flawed football team as well. I think at full strength, I'd probably still lean Buffalo, but that's not to take anything away from this win for Houston, because obviously they deserved it. As infuriating as the way that the Bills lost was, the Texans outplayed them, dramatically outgained them, gave them chances, committed some self-inflicted errors, and still won this game and still deserved to win this game. You mentioned the Minnesota Vikings, Logan, who beat the Texans down. They also beat down the Jets today. Not a blowout by any stretch of the imagination, although it started out with a 17-0 Minnesota lead, but it ends up coming down to the last play of this one, across the pond, of course, this game. What did you take away from this?
I'm going to start negative with the Jets, but I think the Jets' offensive line struggles are going to be too much to overcome. There's just a complete lack of offensive dynamism with this team. They're so predictable. They passed the ball 54 times in this game. They can't run the ball between the tackles. They have 36 total rushing yards. And I get it. Both of those numbers come in with a game script, like you're trailing for most of the game. But the Jets also throw the ball 19 straight plays in the fourth quarter. Like, you're just not keeping a defense on their toes, man. And when you are passing, Aaron Rodgers has no time. He just can't be expected to create with his legs the way he needs to. And you're seeing a very easy recipe and a very fatal flaw in this Jets offense. And that's the fact that if you send the house on a passing play, if you get an extra rusher against New York, they're done. Rodgers can't move and get out of the pocket the way he used to. And this offensive line blows. Like, the difference in line play between a Jets offensive series and a Minnesota series was staggering. Darnold has got all day back in the pocket to throw, and Aaron Rodgers has a second. Like, even that being said, I still put this loss on Rodgers in the offense. Like, it was embarrassing. They were 5 of 17 on third down conversions. They had 3.6 yards per play. The Jets defense holds up their end of the bargain. They hold Minnesota to 16 points. Rodgers has 3 turnovers alone. The Van Ginkel pick six single-handedly swings this game. Gilmore gets a gift from Rodgers on the last play. And the one that is going to keep Jets fans and Rodgers up tonight is him missing Garrett Wilson wide open on that go route on the final drive. Like, you just have to make that play because that's a touchdown every single time. The Devontae Adams noise is only going to get louder here in New York. It seems like they need him at this point. The Jets are going to fall even lower in my power rankings, and I think they kind of have to realize the severity of their situation. Like, you got to make the most of every possession, and what that also means too is I think you got to kick field goals when you need to, man. They go for it on 4th and 2 earlier in this game. It forces the Jets to need a touchdown on their final drive instead of maybe just a field goal. So Rodgers plays a little bit more aggressive. But I think they have to play even more conservative offensively, Carson. Like, when you're in the red zone, dude, just be okay maybe with 3 points. Like, I don't think this offense can cut it, man. I don't know if I look at the Jets as a real contender anymore. Like, I believe in Rodgers.
No.
They can't run the ball. The offensive line can't protect it all. That just feels like a lot for a 40-year-old quarterback to overcome. Yeah. I think the defense is good, man. And I think the defense is probably still the strong side of the football for this team, even though they've been inconsistent through the first, 5 weeks of this season. But I don't believe in this Jets offense, and I don't have the same optimism that I did when we came into the season that they could just turn this around. I don't think this is like a curable thing. I think this offensive line is just cooked, completely washed.
I'm with you, dude. I think that this is a very average football team. And I, coming into the year, didn't think that this had to be a good offense. I thought for them to be a top 10 team in football, it just had to be an okay offense. And I thought they could and would be an okay offense. And they're not, dude. They're extremely limited. The line is bad, significantly worse than I thought. I would think I was too high on their improvements on the outside, just fixing everything with this offensive line. And it hasn't. They can't run the ball, dude. I mean, they have 14 attempts for 36 yards today. And so you're asking a 40-year-old to carry your offense, and it's just not a good formula. It was a very hot and cold performance from Rodgers because there were some moments that just make you scratch your head. I mean, really bad decision on a pick in the first half. But then for the final drive of the first half and for most of the second half, I thought he was doing exactly what they need. Like, you're not going to get it in chunks. It's going to be surgical. It's going to be methodical. I thought he was doing that. I still think he's one of the most accurate throwers of the football. And I think is still a really high level, pure pocket passer. Obviously his mobility is not even close to what it used to be. But then like you have the final throw of this game where your receiver has outside leverage and he's bigger and he's more athletic and you throw it low and inside. Like you thought you were going to get a flag, but like, what even is that? I don't know. That's not the Aaron Rodgers that I'm familiar with. And that ends the game. So I thought he could play it like a top 10 level, like back end of the top 10 this year. He's had some vintage moments, but I think overall he's outside of that. I mean, there are just such superior athletes at this stage. What a Kyler, what a Geno, what these guys
I was
going to
say, dude, I'm cool bumping him for Geno. I think I'm definitely doing that.
Geno's better. Then yeah, no doubt.
Like I'm debating like him with like Brock Purdy right now,
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, dude. Like, I trust Rodgers more as a pure pocket passer and decision maker and arm talent. But, like, listen, man, Brock can run around back there. And, yeah, sometimes something bad might happen, but at least he has the potential to make some magic out of the play. Like, the second that pocket collapses, it's just play over. And Rodgers can throw with great anticipation, but also sometimes it's like, if the guy who he is anticipating being open isn't open, like he has to throw that ball. It's the Tua limitation, right? Like when you just aren't that level of athlete at the quarterback position, you're handcuffing your team in certain situations. And unfortunately, Rodgers at this stage, I think, is that. Good news for the Jets. I thought it was a great game from Garrett Wilson. I liked them getting him that heavily involved, force feeding him like that. And I thought the defense looked elite. I mean, they held the Vikings offense more in check than anybody else has. The pass rush was great. Didn't let Minnesota get anything in the second half until their final field goal drive. But you knew that. Like, there was never a question that this was going to be an awesome defense. This offense just doesn't have the juice. The line, the run game aren't nearly good enough. Rodgers can't save this team. I didn't think he was going to have to save this team. I thought he was just going to have to be pretty good, and they're asking too much of him. And when you consider the expectations for this team, conceding that, yeah, they're just average, they're just okay, that's really disappointing, man. That's very disappointing when you are looking at fielding the best defense in the league and adding Aaron Rodgers and thinking, oh, we have a couple elite skill position players. What the hell does it matter that you have Breece Hall, bro? What does he have this year? -4 yards? He's got that Reggie Bush Bills stat line at this point. My God.
Yeah. I feel bad for
Yeah.
Jets fans. I mean, it was a Super Bowl ceiling. Oh, we're going to go win it. I remember the talk, man. We're going to make the playoffs. We're going to win the division. We're going to win the Super Bowl. Yeah. I think it's a pipe dream at this point, man. The Jets could still make the playoffs, but they don't scare me. I don't look at them as this world beater. And I don't think they have the potential to because of how far away this offensive line is. I do like what I've seen from the Vikings. I think this defense is 1,000% legit. 3 interceptions today, pressure all day on Rodgers, blowing up runs. They get out to a 17-0 lead. But we did finally get to see Sam Darnold under some pressure, and he goes for 179 yards, 14 of 31 on the day, no touchdowns, 2 turnovers, 1 pick, 1 fumble lost. Darnold does a late interception that leads to a Jets touchdown too. I do want to say this. I think Darnold's better than this, and I think the offense is better than this, but he is still the biggest limiter in my belief of the Vikings as a team. And I think people may take issue with that. Wherever I have the Vikings in my power rankings, it's not this defense. I trust this defense. They're probably going to be top 5 this year when we're looking at every aspect of it. But Darnold is still the biggest limiter, and I don't know if I trust him. So if I do have the Bills over the Vikings, if I do have, the Niners over the Vikings, I don't know who I'm going to have when it comes down to the power rankings, but my justification is going to be my belief in Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold's a good quarterback. I think he's better than this, but he almost gave this one away with these turnovers, and it could have came back to bite him in the ass, and we'd have a different takeaway from this game. So Darnold's a good QB. I want to say that, but he is still the biggest limiter to me in my belief of this football team. And I feel like, I don't know, man. I'm still going to just be a little bit skeptical of this team because of Darnold, man. I'm always going to have that lingering in the back of my head.
Okay. I get it. But here's my take on the Darnold thing, because I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, Sammy fraudled. I don't know. It felt like maybe some people came out of the woodworks to celebrate the downfall of Sam Darnold. And this is not a good game. He was not effective in this game. I just don't think we need to overreact to that. Like, if you are a person who thought he was going to be MVP, okay, settle down. Yes, this is a reality check for you. And I do think there are some people who are thinking that out there. But if you are like us, Logan, and if you've been saying he could have a Jared Goff-like season, he could be that level of quarterback, an average to slightly above average starter in a really good offense with a great defense, like Sam Darnold was never, ever the reason that I was like, whoa,
well, yeah, and actually,
these Vikings look really good.
That's a good comp too, even because I mean, I feel like the biggest question mark with the Lions to me outside of the secondary, which has looked better this year, is still probably Goff.
I agree. You have these average quarterbacks, and it's like you knew this game was coming. Like Sam Darnold has improved dramatically, but like he didn't become an elite football player, and he didn't just eradicate that propensity to sometimes have these backbreaking mistakes. But like, I'm also not going to sit here and say, oh, that's Sammy. That's who he's always been, and that's who he's always going to be, because like he's played mostly clean football. If I'm comparing how Darnold has played to my preseason expectations, I am still encouraged. I am still impressed. This isn't a shock that he can have a bad game. It doesn't undo the good. It's good for the Vikings that they could still win this football game, even when they didn't run the ball nearly as effectively as they have. And I really think that's the greatest strength of this offense. I mean, it's the run game, play calling, Jettis. There's a lot of strengths to this offense. Darnold is not a strength per se. He's more just a solid cog in the machine, but they didn't run the ball very well. And they still won because his defense is really great, man. I think it is the strength of this team. They shut down the run, which against the Jets isn't super hard to do, but they did. They brought pressure. I love Cam Bynum in this secondary. One of the best Cal Bears in the NFL today, Logan. God, I love him. He made a play in this one with a pick. I'm fully bought in. I think this is a top 5 defense, and that's why I think that this is very arguably the most balanced team in football right now. These are teams with an elite defense and a high-level offense. And Logan, I'm wondering if Van Ginkel needs to be in depoy talks because, my God, he has just made massive plays in every game this year. 3 sacks, 2 picks. He's everywhere. Shout out to him. Possibly white boy of the month.
Baby Thor, man.
Baby Thor. So I think that even though this is like the ugliest Vikings game so far, it's another good win.
They still won.
Still won, man. That's what I'm saying. They're 5-0 and they've beaten 4 teams that in the preseason I would have thought were going to the playoffs, and
Definitely.
3 teams that I still think are going to the playoffs. So shout out to them, man. They continue to impress. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other half of this, we'll go a little more quickly through these remaining games after some quick words from DraftKings. TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, in for 6. Whatever you call a touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL.
On the ground, in the air, from the special teams or the defense, we don't care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like picking a player to score a touchdown or how many TDs will be in a game. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick.
Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Let's talk about the Caleb Williams breakout game, Logan. No surprise it came against the porous Carolina Panthers defense, but it happened all the same. You and I have been adamantly pro Caleb. We've talked about how a lot of people overreacted to some of the early stat lines and didn't contextualize all this. What did you see from him today?
Yeah, I mean, this was a vindicating game, but I wasn't really surprised at all. He looked really, really good. This is the worst defense in the NFL. I do believe that. I think you need to preface this performance with that, but good. He dominated the worst defense in the league. That's what he's supposed to do. 304 yards, 20 of 29, 2 TDs. He also had 34 rushing yards. You get a little bit of everything, man. He had some beautiful deep balls in this game to DJ Moore, who finally got involved. He had another one to Cole Kmet. He's got some scrambling in this game, but this was the most comfortable I've seen Caleb and the most composed. I do want to give credit to the offensive line as well. Like, I thought Caleb had just more time to
and let's give some credit to the Panthers defense there as well. Very generous of them as always.
Of course. And the running game got going too, right? So Swift got going. So you just have a little bit more dynamism, a little more unpredictability from the offense, and the defense dominated them, so they weren't stressed. But yeah, I've been waiting on this game from Caleb, and I think we're going to see Caleb take a little bit of a spike as he gets more and more confident and more comfortable. I think this is going to be, I'm not going to say routine for Caleb because I think this was an outstanding game from him, but I think we're going to see him consistently put up more games where he's over 250 yards, where he's throwing multiple TDs, where he's hitting on big shot plays, where he's making plays with his legs. Like, I do think he is that special kind of playmaker, and I still think he's going to be one of the best in the game. He's so talented naturally, man. It's ridiculous. And vindicating game, man. 36-10, they win this one. And the final thing I'll say, dude, Dave Canales, man, he's aging like a president over there in Carolina, man. He looks like he's aged a decade from last year since Tampa Bay, bro. He's got heavy bags. Like, Carolina is aging him, man. I feel bad for Dave Canales.
But the red rifle, man, forever youthful, drinking from the fountain of youth, perhaps drinking the blood of children somewhere. My God, doesn't he look good, that Andy Dalton? I thought this was a great game from Caleb. And listen, I'm still very confident that he's going to be a superstar. Crazy how many people wanted to start the, like, Caleb might just not have it discourse. Oh, it had to be Fields. Jayden Daniels, by the way, playing amazing. Obviously, has had a better season than Caleb, but like is obviously QB1 until the end of time from this class. And like everybody needs to disavow Caleb. Everybody settle down. He's gotten better every week. Week 1 was bad, unequivocally. Week 2, in the first half, we saw him get a much better sense for his internal clock in the pocket, getting the ball out, executed better in the first half of that game. Then week 3, he had to lead a comeback effort. I thought that we saw him get a lot more comfortable hitting some of those check down routes, throwing over the middle of the field, using Kmet. Last week was just like a very efficient game managing performance from him, using Swift, using Kmet. And then this game, it felt like he put it all together. I mean, he was just in complete control and he was letting it rip. I mean, he had a couple of beautiful throws to DJ Moore. The second touchdown pass to DJ Moore was an absolute dot, and he was making plays with his legs. He had a great touchdown run called back also for clipping. Like, he's got all the ability in the world. And when this offensive line can keep him clean, when he doesn't have the least effective run game in football, like he can stand, he can deliver beautiful balls, and he can make special plays. And he's not trying to play like he's in college. Like, I just think there have been some fallacies about Caleb's performance that haven't actually rung true. If you watch closely, he was in a really tough situation and he's improved consistently and he's figuring things out. Like, yes, this is a Mickey Mouse ass defense. Okay. But he killed them. He destroyed them. And I didn't think that that was surprising. And if he keeps improving like I expect him to with this defense, I think this Bears team could make a playoff push. They're very legit.
I agree.
So they're just really reaching my preseason expectations, and Caleb's getting closer to my preseason expectations. And I think that's been fun to see. Nothing to say about the Panthers in this game other than just maybe a mental health check-in on Dave Canales. Let's talk about the other rookie quarterback though, Logan, because Jayden Daniels and the Commanders just keep on cooking. They destroyed the Cleveland Browns. 3-touchdown win. What'd you take away from this one?
I'll start positive, but yeah, Jayden Daniels is a superstar. He's going to be one. I think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league one day. I think top 5 is possible, and he could be closing in on top 10 by the end of this season. I did a video on him against the Cardinals and breaking down what makes him so special, but it starts that he's an all-time scrambling talent. Jayden Daniels has the most rushing yards by a quarterback in his first 5 career starts. The agility, the acceleration, the elusiveness. Like when we're talking Lamar, when we're talking Vic, when we're talking Fields, when we're talking Hurts, when we're talking Kyler Murray, Jayden Daniels is right up there with him. The play that I would take a look at in this game, 4th and 3, hemmed up in the pocket. You talk about that demoralizing feeling when you have a quarterback locked down in the pocket, you're going to sack him in the backfield. He turns it into a 30-yard gain. I mean, it is that special ability to turn negative plays into positive plays. It is such a game changer for a quarterback. And you see it on display last week against Arizona, this week here against Cleveland, where he's going to take a sack and he somehow turns it into a 6-yard gain, a 7-yard gain. It is an invaluable trait where 9 quarterbacks out of 10 are going to take a sack, and Jayden Daniels can turn it into something positive. The play extension and the self-creation, the accuracy, the situational awareness, it's already elite for a quarterback this young. I talked about how I thought he was going to hit on bigger shot plays when he got out of the pocket. He hits on a big one with Terry McLaurin. He just has a special skill set that not every quarterback in the league does. It's that dual threat aspect, that archetype, this skill set that makes him the most valuable type of quarterback in the NFL today, a guy that can kill you in the pocket and then a guy that can kill you outside of it. It's the most dangerous type of quarterback on third downs and red zone plays. It's the one that everybody's looking for nowadays. And that's what Jayden is. It's not a perfect game. He misses on some throws. Specifically, the one that I thought was the worst was he missed Zach Ertz wide open on a seam route early in this game, but it doesn't come back to bite him because this is such a bad blowout. Jayden's a superstar. I'm disappointed that my pre-draft evaluation was so wrong on him, but you know what? We as humans have the ability to change. It's a beautiful thing that we get to wake up every day. The sun shines, and it's an opportunity to be a better person and to change your mind if you were wrong on something. I'll be the first to tell you I was wrong about Jayden Daniels. He is proving me wrong every single week with what he is doing, and I'm happy to be wrong. I'm happy for Jayden. The guy's a monster. He is one of the most poised and comfortable and ready quarterbacks I've ever seen out of a rookie. And he takes that readiness and that comfortable and that composure, and he combines that with one of the most unique and elite skill sets I've ever seen at the position. And he's only going to get better. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm so impressed every single game with Jayden's ability, man.
Well, while we're taking the opportunity to learn and improve, I'll just come out and say it. I was wrong about Danimals. I was wrong about Danimals. They've always been good. They weren't just Sprouse twin ad merchants. I can't hear what you're saying, but I presume you're just raving about Danimals
Great
right
take.
now.
I mean, it's a great take, man.
That's what I'm saying. We're listening and we're learning and we're sitting our white asses down and we're improving. Yeah, I don't have a ton to add. The one thing that I will say is I think Jayden already has to be up there for the most accurate deep ball thrower in football. I mean, it is unbelievable. And you saw the touch at LSU, but like, yeah, it's translated big time. And he made one bad decision today with the red zone pick, but like, that's damn near the first of his career. It's just amazing. Like, this has been the best offense in football with a rookie quarterback and with skill position talent that we didn't look at in the preseason and think, yeah, that's super impressive. Like, they put up 34 points in this game versus the Browns defense with the red zone turnover. They're averaging over 40 a game over the last 3 weeks, and they've sustained it at such an impressive level. We've already broken it down. You have to give credit to Cliff. You have to give a ton of credit to Jayden. And I think the skill position talent is better than we thought.
And the Buffet boys.
And the Buffet boys. Well, I think that in some ways they kind of work around the Buffet boys. But it's been a really, really dominant offense. On the flip side of this, I mean, the Browns couldn't be a worse offense. They couldn't have a worse quarterback.
Real last two things I want to say on Washington's offense real quick. I did want to give a shout out to Tyler Biadasz because I think that dude's a beast. He's a really good blocker up front. The Cowboys, I think, are missing him a little bit. The second thing I wanted to say about Jayden, I mentioned this in my video, but his gravity is insane for such a young player. And what I mean by that is just how he impacts plays that maybe he's not directly involved in, like a handoff to Brian Robinson Jr. Jayden's threat as a runner is almost as great as sometimes him just running the football, the way he will hold defensive ends on read options or play action plays because they can't fully commit to going and making a play. And it's like, that is just something unique to Jayden because he is so effective as a runner already. Like, other quarterbacks, you just can't bend a defense like that. Jayden can. It's truly remarkable stuff from such a young guy. On the opposite side of this, Cleveland's offense is up there for one of the worst in football. Right now, they're averaging 3.8 yards per play. It is the lowest in the NFL. They are the only team below 4 yards per play this season. They are also averaging 4.9 yards per pass. That is also the lowest in the NFL. This offensive line has significantly regressed, in my opinion. They have allowed the most pressures in the NFL. They can't run the ball. They are averaging the 6th fewest rushing yards per game, under 100. The Browns also lead the NFL in drops. I'm not cutting Deshaun any slack. I'll get to him here in a second, but Deshaun did dot up Jerry Jeudy in the end zone on one of these plays, and Jeudy just drops it. Deshaun still sucks. He still has not surpassed 200 yards in a single game this year. He is averaging 170 passing yards per game, a passer rating under 75, and he has more turnovers than TDs. He is number 3 for most turnovers. He is number 6 in lowest passer rating, and he is number 7 in fewest passing yards per game. It is everything about his game as a quarterback. He is inaccurate. He lacks any touch on his ball. He has one of the worst turnovers I've ever seen in this game to Frankie Louvu, where he is cluelessly and aimlessly moving around in the pocket, and the ball just gets knocked out of his hands into Louvu for a turnover. They go 1 of 13 on third down conversions in this game. They have the worst third down offense in the NFL. And the most telling possession in this game to me is where JOK peanut punches McLaurin. Great play, maybe could change the tide of this game. The Browns can't even score a touchdown after that, after being gifted the ball. So I have said this for weeks now, but I'm ready to go ahead and run it back. Carson, the Browns should bench Deshaun Watson. Kevin Stefanski came out and said it after the game. We are not going to change quarterbacks. Okay. Me and Carson are going to tell you guys a little bit about the sunken cost fallacy again, where it is defined as making irrational decisions because you are factoring in influences other than the current alternative. It is the best thing for this sorry-ass franchise, and it is a pride thing at this point. You have already paid Deshaun Watson That's gone and done with. I think the best thing that they can do at this point is to admit the mistake and to be done with it. You bite the bullet, you send him home. He is a lost cause, because I think there are two very positive things that are going to come out of Deshaun Watson's benching. First, you're going to liberate this locker room. This is a team that is playing without any hope because they don't believe in their quarterback. That is a damning thing for a football team. You would give them a quarterback they believe in, and maybe not believe in, but at least a guy that they can rally behind in Jameis Winston, and just inject them with a little bit of hope, and it would fire up the fan base. You hear it and I hear it, Cleveland, the chorus of boos that rains down from your own fans because they don't believe in the guy and they don't like the guy. If you put Jameis in, you could at least root for the quarterback. And so I get it. It would suck having your front office come out and say, we made a $300 million, that's exaggerating, a $257 million mistake, to be exact.
And the trade. Let's not forget about the trade.
And all the assets you gave up to get him. It sucks. But if we are starting from zero, if we are not equating the money into any of it, we're not putting this into the equation, who gives you a better chance to win football games? I firmly believe that it is Jameis Winston, and that this locker room would be rejuvenated, and that the fan base would be happy. There's just no point to me, Carson, at this point. We have seen enough of a sample size from Deshaun Watson. He can't hack it. I think his conscience is eating away at him. I've said that before on the show, but I think it eats at him. He has lost all his mojo. He sucks. He sucks, man. Jameis is better. And when Jameis Winston is a better quarterback than your starting quarterback, we have problems. But like I said, man, the best thing they can do at this point is to raise their hand. They say, my fault, move on. Let's put this thing to bed, man. Let's just end it. Let's rip the Band-Aid, dude. I don't know how many other euphemisms I got. Bench Deshaun Watson, point blank, period.
Amen, dude. It's just shocking when you think about how much more functional this offense was with 38-year-old Joe Flacco off his couch last year. They let him walk. And you have a good backup in Jameis, and you don't want to put him on the field. Like you say, man, I mean, it is just completely operating from the perspective that we have invested so much in Deshaun that we cannot admit, as everybody knows, that we were terribly, terribly wrong. And this guy's a horrible person and a horrible football player on a horrible contract, and we made a horrible trade for him. I don't think there's a team that I was more wrong about than the Browns, because I thought, even with bad quarterback play, which I was expecting from Deshaun, it's been a little worse than I expected, but I was expecting bad. I mean, he showed us over the last 2 years that he sucks now. I still thought, hey, last year, despite that, they were able to be a good football team and ride this defense, and it's just gotten worse. Deshaun's gotten worse, and this team is not even close to the conversations I thought that they could be in. They're not a respectable football team. They're a joke. And benching Deshaun Watson is the first and by far most important step to them at least opening up the door to escape that status.
And the last thing that I just want to double down on what I was saying about what this would do for your locker room is because you're robbing your defense of juice, man. Like I said, it's like the defense is going to play harder for a guy that they believe in, that they go, oh, we're going to get this ball back so we can win the game. You're just stealing thunder from your own locker room by refusing to do this and to make this move. And I also want to say this too. I think Stefanski is the best thing that has ever happened to the Cleveland Browns, like in a long, long, long time. I really hope it does not fall at his feet at the end of this season, that he is the one that gets the boot.
Oh God, that would be terrible.
I just think that would be a catastrophic error. And
I don't think that would happen.
The thing that also confuses me, Carson, about this situation is I don't know if Stefanski is the one pulling the strings, because I wonder if Stefanski would have already went again. And I'm just speculating here, but I wonder if the front office is holding him to continue playing Deshaun just because of the money situation.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's probably the great Jimmy Haslam. And I say the great very sardonically there. Yeah, man. It's bad, but I agree. I mean, Stefanski, bro, he's two-time coach of the year and 4 full seasons as a head coach. If you let that guy go, I mean, the Cleveland Browns even, I don't think could be that incompetent, but maybe they could, because here they are still starting Deshaun Watson.
It's just the most
Brutal.
Browns thing ever, man. The fact that like last year they gave them such false hope with Joe Flacco. Who, hey man, Joe Flacco was slinging that thing today. I don't know if y'all saw Cleveland. He was
Let's talk
still
about it.
doing his thing.
Let's talk about that game. That was a really fun game.
That's
Bengals
wild,
Ravens
dude.
was like the shootout of the day. Really, really got going in the fourth quarter, but so did this game. I mean, they were both just letting it fly. Jags Colts Logan. Flacco was letting it rip, but it's Jacksonville that wins their first game of the year. What'd you take away from this one?
Well, my take for the Colts, Joe Flacco can still sling it. It is weird to me how he gets it done. It's so unique. He's like a turret, man. He doesn't move. He just rotates. You know, he's going to find an open guy. It's not a perfect game. He's got a strip sack fumble right before the first half, and he misses Mo Ali Cox on a TD, but Joe's still got it, man. He can win you a game in a pinch. And the fact that Cleveland let him walk to avoid a QB controversy, just letting talent walk out of the room that you could win with, I still think is a big mistake. But this game actually said the most to me, I thought, about the Colts defense. 497 total yards allowed, 8.7 yards per play allowed, pressure not getting home, big shot plays to this Jags offense. It just said a lot to me. I was hopeful and optimistic about this Colts defense before the year started, and I'm just not. I will give credit to Trevor Lawrence for finally showing up. 371 yards, 28 to 34, 2 TDs. I thought he played with confidence today. This was a T-Law that was forceful, and it was passionate. There was some fire behind T-Law's play today, man. Like, I just saw more. And I want to give credit to the Jags because I thought they did a good job by giving him underneath routes to throw to. It was a lot of Etienne. There were a lot of screen passes. But they also hit on the big plays that they hadn't been hitting on before. Brian Thomas Jr., the 85-yard TD, a big shot play to Christian Kirk. And they ran the ball well. I think you got to give Tank Bigsby more burn, man. 101 rushing yards in this one.
Stud.
For like 2 seasons now, Tank Bigsby has ran the ball consistently better behind this line than Etienne. So I thought this game said the most about the Colts defense. I don't think it's very good, but signs of life from Jacksonville is all we needed. Dude, when I think it was Buster Brown that got burnt, I can't remember, when Flacco connected with Alec Pierce deep.
Can you imagine being named Buster Brown? God, that'd be awesome.
Big bad Buster Brown, man. When Flacco connected with Alec Pierce on that deep shot and Ryan Nielsen just fell to his knees, I really thought the Jags were like in store for a classic Jaguars collapse, but they luckily hold on.
Would have been vintage. Here are my positive takeaways for the Jags. It's good to see a great game from T-Law because we can talk about the situation and the play calling and the skill position talent and all these things that have made life tough on him. He just wasn't good enough through the first 4 weeks, and he was really quite inaccurate above all else. And he was letting it rip in this game. I mean, hit multiple huge shot plays, as you mentioned, but also getting some underneath stuff, throwing fastballs over the middle of the field. He was accurate. He was surgical, getting them into field goal range when they needed it to win the game. Like, really just made one mistake, throwing it into double coverage. But God, he just needed a game like this. The season's over for the Jags, of course. Peterson should have already been fired, but the dude you invested $250 million in, like, he had to be better. We had not seen him play up to his abilities. We hadn't seen him progress how we wanted. And I'm still fundamentally a T-Law believer. Like, am I as high on him as I was after his second year? No. But I still think that this is a franchise quarterback, and I think this is a dude who can still improve and who could really thrive in a better situation. And I thought he was awesome today. I am also extremely high on Bryce Thomas Jr. I think he's already easily their best receiver. He is so explosive. I think you just keep getting him the ball, keep building a rapport with him and T-Law. Like, that's the future. I'm not a Christian Kirk guy. I'm certainly not a Gabe Davis guy, but I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a foundational piece here. And I'm with you, man. I think that Bigsby's a better runner than Etienne. I thought he was going to be a more featured piece last year, and he kind of struggled when they did feature him, and they didn't feature him a ton, but he's cooking this year. I mean, he's averaging 8 yards a carry. Like, he's so hard to tackle. Both his touchdown runs in this game were insane. The first one, I mean, he's just thunderous. He gets a push, but like, he just keeps moving his legs. I'd keep giving him the damn ball. I would keep using him on the ground, and Etienne can be more of a pass catching back, although Bigsby had a nice catch and run in this game too. like I said, there's a lot that is really dark for Jacksonville. At least this game shows you there's some key offensive pieces here that you can believe in. For the Colts, props to Flacco. I mean, he just lets it rip from within the pocket. It's really fun to watch. He also scrambled for a first down today, which was insane. And Alec Pierce is insane, dude. Oh my God. This guy's playing out of his mind.
Yeah, Pierce had one crazy ass catch near the sideline that made no sense.
Yeah, but he
Dude,
had 3 deep balls in the fourth quarter to Pierce.
I want to say that I think that was the longest run of Joe Flacco's career, which is kind of ridiculous.
God, he earned it. I mean, there was room to run, and he took off. Shout out to Pierce, though, man. He's averaging 28 yards a catch, and he's burning people, and he's making great catches. And I do like this receiving core. I like the totality of Pittman, Pierce, and Downs and Mitchell. Like, there's not a standout number one in that group, but I think it's a really solid group in totality. But I think if you were somebody who was hopeful about the Colts making the playoffs, yeah, I think the defense showed you that they're just not where they need to be. But it's a good thing when you have Joe Flacco as your backup quarterback because you can still go out there and win games, even with AR out. All right, Logan, let's talk about Giants Seahawks, Logan. The New York Football Giants leave with a win today. What'd you take away?
One game, I mean, one play can swing a game. I thought it all hinged on that blocked field goal. It goes from 23-20 to 29-20. You do have some classic Giants moments in here. Daniel Jones gets sacked by Casper early in this game, forces a fumble by himself. Also, you have a goal line fumble by the Giants recovered for 102 yards. I mean,
yeah,
classic Giants.
He's hating even on the win. Look at him. He doesn't want to concede that it was a Danny Dimes masterclass.
I was just about to say, man, it eats me up to say, but Daniel Jones did play a good football game today. That throw down the right sideline to Darius Slayton was a good one. He had a good corner route TD to Slayton. Daniel Jones played a good game. In other news, I thought the Giants might have found something in Tyrone Tracy Jr. I get that every team should be able to run on Seattle. And that is their biggest weakness. And credit to the Giants. I thought they did a phenomenal job up front today blocking for him. But that kid's got real speed, nice burst. He had 129 yards, 7.2 yards per carry in this one. I just think, this offense has lacked dynamism without Saquon. And if there's anybody that can alleviate pressure off of Daniel Jones, that's just a big, big bonus. And so I thought that did help Daniel Jones today. Not to take away because he did play a really good game, but I thought having a running game to lean on where you can get the play action going, it helped him out. But I was impressed with Daniel Jones today. I cannot believe I'm saying that. It was a good Daniel Jones performance, man.
God bless you. Here's what I'll say. By the way, I'm not a Danny Dimes guy, but we were talking about the 5 worst starting quarterbacks in football last week. And we were talking about, you proposed him for the last spot. I was saying I think it should be Gardner at this point. Danny Dimes is clear of Gardner Minshew conversations. Preseason, I thought it was a debate. It's not. Gardner Minshew fucking sucks as part of it. But Danny Dimes has played fine. I know you love a quirked up white boy. I know you love a quirked up white boy, just like you love your Danimals. But they're not all winners, man. They're not all winners. For every Baker at the NFL level, there's a Johnny Football at the NFL level. There's a Gardner Minshew at the NFL level. Gardner is that right now. If you put him in a good offense, he can be fine. We saw it last year, but the Raiders offense, it's going to be really ugly. We'll get to that. Danny's been fine ever since week 1 when he was really bad, but I think I just underestimated the Giants, dude. I thought this would be one of the worst teams in football. Defense is pretty awesome, man. I mean, they have 22 sacks in 5 games. Brought the heat in this one. And of course, the Seahawks offensive line sucks. We know that, but they have just been harassing passers. Gino dropped back on that 4th and 1 in Seattle's own territory on their own 35. He never even had a chance to get the pass off. I mean, like the second that he picked his head up, he was already being sacked. And that's the game right there. And then, of course, they have the blocked field goal, which is a special teams / defense play. Like, they're making plays on the side of the ball that does not involve Danny Dimes. And by the way, I think I underrated this receiving core because Malik's already a monster, and I like Wan'Dale Robinson, and I like Slayton. Like, this is a perfectly fine, functional football team. Are they good? No. But the defense can win them games, and I thought that it did in this one, I mean, I know that they end up putting up points, but like, I really thought it was the defense that impressed me here again.
Yeah, and if they can get clear of Daniel Jones and keep this group together long enough, when they get a new rookie quarterback in here, I think the Giants are going to have a real chance to be good real fast. I like the O-line. I like the receiving core. I
You
like the
like the
pass
line?
rush. I like pieces of the O-line. Like I said, I mean, you're doing this. This is a multi-year thing because it's not like Daniel Jones is going to be gone after this year. So you keep building the O-line up over mostly the interior over the next 2
Mhm.
years. I think when they get their new quarterback, man, I think the Giants could be real competitive. On the other side of this, I still think the Seahawks are a good football team. It starts that I really, really believe in Geno. He has been moving the needle for me. He has 303 total scrimmage yards in this game. That is with sack yardage accounted for. He had 90% of the Seahawks' total offense in this game, and he is the most passing and rushing yards by any quarterback in football this year. To me, this isn't on him. It's the fatal flaws of the Seahawks rearing their ugly head. The Seahawks O-line allowed Geno to get sacked 7 times. They also allowed the Giants to get 6 tackles for loss. And then their rushing defense, they allow 175 rushing yards and 5.1 yards per attempt. I just think that the Seahawks have trench issues in the middle, on their defense and basically the whole O-line. But Geno's a monster, bro. Geno makes this team competitive week to week, dude. I really
Yeah.
believe in him, and that is basically what is keeping my faith in the Seahawks alive is Geno and almost Geno alone.
He's such a baller, dude. I mean, he puts them in field goal range on the first play of the 2-minute drill. Like, he had 2 massive scrambles in this game. He did his job. I thought, obviously, he would have liked to get a touchdown, but, like, you're well within field goal range, and, he's fighting a very uphill battle with all the pressure that he was under. I do like the Seahawks. This doesn't really change my opinion of them. Like, they're susceptible to losing a game like this because of their liabilities in the trenches. You just bank on them holding up enough defensively, and you bank on Geno and the passing attack carrying them offensively. And I think that's a wild card team. That's what I think that the Seahawks are. But again, the Giants are capable enough to take a game like this. Let's move elsewhere, Logan. Another NFC West team, the Rams, also lost today to the Green Bay Packers. What do you take away from this one?
Yeah, I kind of thought that the Packers outplayed, that the Rams outplayed Green Bay and still lost. I mean, they outgained Green Bay in this one. They had more first downs. They were better on third down. They had a pick six. Like, I thought the Rams should have won this one, but they just don't convert enough plays late. Green Bay's pressure was really good. It gets home on that last drive. And then, 2 second-half turnovers and a turnover on downs. It'll kill you. I got to give credit to the Packers. 14 turnovers forced through 5 weeks. That is number 1 in the NFL. McKinney now has an interception in 5 straight games. And I just thought the Rams allowed way too many shot plays. Love hit with Reed on a 53-yard bomb. He hit with Tucker Kraft on a 66-yard TD. I think it's a testament to Stafford that they're competitive in this game. And I'll give credit. I thought the LA defense played well too. You just get killed by self-inflicted wounds, man. They can't survive.
Yeah, I do think on the flip side of this, there's not a ton to take away for Green Bay. I just don't think this is a very surprising win for them. But you mentioned the self-inflicted errors for the Rams. I think for Green Bay to contend, like the biggest box that I'm looking at them checking outside of their defense, I want to see more out of their defense. But Jordan Love just has to take better care of the ball. He has the back-breaking pick six in this game where it's a tough spot, right? He's trying to avoid a safety, so you're already going to put points on the board for the other team. But yeah, that's an extremely risky spot to try to throw it away, obviously. He's under pressure. I think it was just on the next drive, and he throws the ball backwards, which is a fumble, of course, loses them like 8 yards there. Like, he's got a lot of talent, obviously. And we saw him lock in and play awesome down the home stretch last year. The arm is there, the mobility is there, and he's got balls. He's got cojones. He'll take shots. But he's got 5 picks in 3 games this year, and he's only completing 56% of his passes. Like, he is a franchise quarterback. I do believe that. He's just got to be more consistent, and he's got to be a little bit smarter with cutting his losses in some of these spots. But they hit on explosives. Jayden Reed, dude, his ball tracking on the deep ball that Jordan through basically into triple coverage. I don't know how Jayden was the one who found that ball. That was insane. But you mentioned Tucker Kraft making big plays after the catch. We know they can run the damn ball. We know LaFleur is great. They just need Love to be consistent and clean. And then, this is a really good team. I mean, it's a great offense. On the Rams side, yeah, I just thought they left some points on the board. I didn't think that they needed to go for it. On the 5, down 7-0, like you're at the very start of the game. If you're inside the 3, okay, but that's not a high percentage conversion. Then they missed the extra point later, so they had to play for the touchdown. Stafford threw a bad pick. Like, they need to be pretty perfect if they want to win when they're down some of these key dudes offensively, and they weren't in this game at all. They just had several, bad moments that they couldn't come back from. Kyron Williams is the man, though. I want to give him props. Like, he just continues to ball out. He runs hard. He's a great back in terms of his ability to cut. I'm super high on him. All right, Logan, let's speed run through these last 2 games. Broncos, Raiders. Give me 3 words. No, we lost Logan. Oh, he's back.
My fault. I hit the wrong button.
We got a picture of Logan in a suit with hair.
That doesn't exist, bro.
That's
AI generated.
Meatballs.
That's AI generated, bro. That's not a real picture.
For sure.
Yeah, this is like a battle of the 2 worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. This is a poop fest. I don't know. Bo Nix, the good game. Bo Nix. Gardner Minshew bad. That's my take.
That's good stuff, man. Yeah, this was a nice game from Bo. He's undulated between absolute disaster classes and being pretty solid, Yeah. Played 3 of the worst games you've ever seen, but then he's played 2 pretty solid games. I think that this is more about the Broncos defense being legitimately good.
Yeah.
They've impressed me. The Raiders also really, really suck more than I thought, especially without Devontae. I thought this would be like a scrappy 7-win team. Defense would win them some games. Gardner would be okay. They have talent in the receiving game. But yeah, they're down Devontae and Gardner sucks. I thought the pick that he threw to Pat Surtain, the pick 6, was absolutely brutal.
This team is melting, bro. This team is melting.
Yeah. What did I say, Logan? What did I say? Antonio Pierce era. It wouldn't be what people thought. I said this is going to come crashing and burning quicker than you think, and it's happening. I feel like some people might be looking at Denver maybe as like a scrappy potential wild card team.
Bo Nix can't. I mean, I'm sorry.
I agree. No, I agree. I think that the offense is extremely limited. It's a bottom 5 offense in football.
The defense is there, but it's like, bro, you're banking on Bo having a good game, and his boom and bust ratio is not good right now.
And the talent around him isn't good enough.
No.
Let's be real. Obviously, he's one of the worst starters in the league right now, but he also has one of the worst receiving cores in the league. It's not there. And also, I mean, this defense would need to be crazy. It'd probably have to be better than last year's Browns defense for them to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I just would need to see some insane defensive performances against better offenses than the ones that they've shut down up to this point. But shout out to them, man. I didn't think they'd be 3-2. So another team that has been more respectable than I expected. 2 teams that are not respectable at all, Logan. Dolphins, Pats. Both these teams suck.
Yeah, I will say I thought the Patriots got robbed at the end of this game. I don't feel pity for the Patriots because they're the Patriots, and I happen to remember.
You hate this country.
I happen to remember. I'm not going to acknowledge that statement. I don't. Okay. I love the U.S. shout out. Bro, I'm not going to feel bad for any Patriots fans when Jesse James caught a ball and scored a TD, and then they took it from us and cost us the number 1 seed, and then we lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the first round of the playoffs when we should have had a bye.
Right.
So I don't feel bad that they got boned like this, but that was a touchdown to Jalen Polk. Jacoby Brissett threw it. Polk caught it in the end zone and tapped his second toe. I don't care what the
tap. Was that a tap?
I don't care what the rules say. Oh, his heel had to be. Y'all don't know what a catch is anymore because y'all did that mess with Calvin and then y'all did that mess with Dez. Nobody knew what a catch was anymore and we're brain dead. He brought it down inbounds. He brought it. The ball didn't move.
No, it should be a catch.
But the 2 feet came down.
It should be a catch, but I don't think what CJ Stroud did today should have been intentional grounding. But if you're calling them by the rules, the refs didn't mess up.
That was a touchdown.
If you want to have a gripe with the rules committee, well, but by the rules, unless it's deemed a tap, and I don't think that was a tap. I mean, the balls of his feet were just like, they would just look like a step. It looked like a normal step.
I mean, his toe comes in and hits before his heel. Like, that's what I don't understand.
No, it wasn't a tap, though. There wasn't the angle for it to be a tap. I mean, he landed flat on the balls of his feet, and then his heel landed after.
I mean, his first foot lands, his second foot then taps with the toe. Like, that's a TD.
I don't think it tapped.
I'm pretty sure it did. I don't know.
I was rewatching it, man, because it's weird, right? I mean, he had 2 feet in, but it has to be a tap or a drag with the second foot, and I didn't think that it was a tap. I
thought Polk got his foot in. I thought that was a really bad call, but I mean, this was a weird ass game, dude.
Yeah, terrible game. I mean, that's literally the only thing to talk about from this game. Other than that, what is there to say? These are awful football teams.
Yeah, I don't know. Jason Sanders had some pretty funny special teams gaffes. He missed a 41-yard field goal, and then they literally couldn't even get a kickoff at the end of the half because that was weird. I don't know. I'm adamant though. I thought Jalen Polk caught that TD. I thought the Pats kind of got robbed. But you know what?
They consulted Dean Blandino. Dean Blandino was confident. And I think his explanation checks out. But that's just me, though, at the end of the day. I'm just being real. And I'm just
damn what Dean Blandino thinks, man.
Well, that's what makes you, Logan. You're a trailblazer and a genius and an innovator.
I don't think we
and
know
you
what
love animals.
Anymore, man.
No, I do agree. I think that should be a catch. I think by all intuitive measures, how is that not a catch, right? Like, what about that does not indicate control? I don't know. Why does he have to do a ballerina move with his second foot?
For real.
Why can't it just be in?
That's what I'm saying.
But at the same time, as long as the rules say that he does have to do a ballerina move, I don't think that you can complain. It's frustrating if you're a Pats fan. I get it. But I do think that they called it correctly by the rule. All right. What a marathon day of football. My voice is barely hanging on. 2+ hours. God bless all of you that stuck with us live. God bless all of you that have watched this all the way through. What a crazy day. Appreciate you all. If you want more of our stuff, Logan referenced the video he did on Jayden Daniels. That's on our YouTube channel. I did a video on Amen Thompson the other day. We've got all of our NFL reaction content, all of our NBA season preview content on our YouTube channel. You can listen to all of our shows across audio platforms. You can follow us across social, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at @nerd_sesh, and you can join our Discord if you want to start discourse that frankly moves the country forward and the world forward. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I've been Logan Camden.
And this was NerdSesh.